After a nice little break and just in time for the end of the VGC-style Draft League in Regulation MA, the Prismatic Draft League has returned for Season 11, and I'm here once again to enter the league myself and also cover the entire season as well as I can on this channel. This is a VGC Regulation MB Draft League, so at the time that I'm recording this, that is the current VGC format, i.e. the current double battle format in Pokemon Champions. All of the Pokemon, moves, items, etc. legal in that format are also what is legal in this draft league, but this is a draft league, so each individual coach will draft a certain number of Pokemon that they have exclusive rights to use within their pool. If you're confused on the premise, I have a bunch of other VGC... Well, that's true, but I mean I have a bunch of other draft league seasons, PDL seasons, that's what I was looking for, that you can watch on this channel. Mega Evolution is also once again legal in this PDL season as it is in Regulation MB, and unlike last time, there is no cap on the number of Mega Pokemon that a team can draft. A lot of teams still have only 1 or 2, but some teams have 3 or 4, so there are really Megas everywhere this time. The season structure is pretty simple. There are 20 teams total, so once again we have split into 2 pools. Pool A has 10 teams, Pool B has 10 teams. The coaches will be playing a round-robin schedule each week. Each coach plays 1 match. They play everyone in their pool, so that's a total of 9 weeks of the regular season. After that, I believe the top 4 in each pool will advance to playoffs, and I believe the bracket this time has been specifically set up to minimize rematches, to have as many inter-pool matchups as possible. So, for example, the 1 seed in Pool A will play the 4 seed in Pool B. The 2 seed in Pool B will play the 3 seed in Pool A, and so on. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We're just at the beginning of the season. We still have to go through the draft to meet the teams, and one of those teams is, once again, your Halifax Masquerainmen. Season 8 champions, longtime PDL contenders, still looking for that second championship right now. We are entered into Pool B, and so I'm going to go over my own draft, and then I'm going to go over all the other drafts with a little bit of a twist on the format this time, and then I'll talk about exactly what the videos are going to look like here. First, the roster configuration. I still made one of these images, even though it's, once again, very, very simple this season. In fact, it's even simpler than it was last season. This is, once again, a points-based draft. Every Pokemon has a point value between 1 and, like, 20. I think 20 is the highest. Maybe there's something over that. And I have a total budget of, this time, 100 points to fill out, this time, 10 roster spots. Last season, we allowed coaches to have 10 or 11, and I think I used the full 11. This time it is specifically 10 for every team. Every team must have exactly 10 Pokemon on the roster at all times. There is room, of course, to make trades, to drop some Pokemon and pick others up, but you can never go under 100 point. You can never go over a 100-point budget, and you can never go under or over those 10 filled roster spots. You must have exactly 10 Pokemon. Pretty straightforward otherwise. Drafts are, again, separated between the 2 pools. That's largely the point of splitting into 2 pools. So, being in Pool B, anything I draft cannot be used by anyone else in Pool B. Anything that anyone else has drafted in Pool B is not available to me, but some of the Pokemon that I have were also drafted by someone else in Pool A. That's fine. They have their own separate draft with their own separate draft board. And going into this draft, I did not really have any plan at all. I say that often. I had even less of a plan than usual this time. And I've kind of benefited in recent drafts from pretty often getting the last pick or something close to it. So I've been able to start with a powerful duo, get some broken combination going immediately, and then build out supports around it. This time I had the number 4 pick in Snake Draft order in my 10-team pool. So I was picking kind of in the middle of every single round, even as the draft order snaked back and forth. So I was very much picking 1 Pokemon at a time, and I mean, even if I'd been able to get a broken combination right off the bat, I'm not sure I had one in mind. I really did not know what I was doing heading into this draft. But the nice thing about picking 4th instead of picking last is that most of the broken individual Pokemon are still available at that point. And if you've watched my Draft League seasons on this channel before, you know that in PDL Season 10, so last season when we were playing VGC 2015, I kind of wanted to draft Mega Gengar because Gengar is my favorite Pokemon, and there was novelty to me in being able to use its Mega form in this format after years of Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet VGC. And so one of my ideas going into that draft was just take Mega Gengar and then figure the rest out later. And I was not able to do that because Mega Gengar was drafted in my pool before my first pick. And the same thing happened in the recent VGC-style Draft League. Again, I had the idea, well, why don't I just draft Mega Gengar and then figure the rest out later? And again, Gengar was taken before my pick, so that wasn't an option. And so I think you can see where this is going. I will say there were other Pokemon that I thought about. I thought about drafting Annihilape because someone did that early in Pool A, and it made a lot of sense to me. Annihilape is a pretty broken Pokemon that needs not a ton of support to just be extremely difficult for opponents to weaken or remove. I thought about taking Mega Staraptor. Mega Staraptor has been one of the most attention-grabbing new Megas in Regulation MB. It stood out as a very powerful threat immediately and one that players have had a lot of fun using. I do think it's probably a lot weaker in Draft League because Mega Staraptor has like one thing that it does especially well, right? Spamming close combat to take advantage of Contrary and maybe getting boosts from side stat drop moves from its teammate. And in a draft league where you're specifically building to counter team your opponent's draft, the fact that Mega Staraptor doesn't do very many different things and kind of just has one thing that it does extremely well definitely opens up some weaknesses because players can prepare for that, and then what does your Staraptor do? But I really felt like, one, it'd be good content to get the most attention grabbing new Mega, and two, there was probably a way that I could make Mega Staraptor work. I felt like if I found the right supports, it was well worth trying out, and maybe I could even find more than one thing for it to do. Staraptor is not quite a one-trick pony, although it kind of mostly is in current VGC, and so I was very interested in that idea. I got pretty close to pulling the trigger on that one, and I'll tell you now, Mega Staraptor ended up going undrafted in my pool. Not one person picked it, which I kind of understand because, like I just talked about, it's probably a lot worse in draft than it is in regular VGC, but it's too bad nobody gave it a chance after I chose not to. But as I was weighing my options, I thought, well, if I had some really strong, compelling other plan, instead of just Mega Gengar and figure it out, if there was something really grabbing my interest in this format, then maybe I say, okay, I'm more interested in this, I go for it. Mega Staraptor got kind of close to being that, but it wasn't quite there. Without something really pulling me in onto a different path, I thought, okay, this is my third draft league season with Mega Gengar in it. I keep saying I'd like to just draft my favorite Pokemon with this Mega Evolution and figure the rest out. I have the opportunity to actually do it now. It would be kind of silly if I didn't, so my first round pick was Mega Gengar for a whopping 20 points. 1/5 of my budget already gone, but I get a very good Pokemon out of it, and not just design-wise. Mega Gengar, as you can see from the stats there, is a fast and very powerful special attacker. Honestly, I used it a bunch last regulation, and I forgot that its special attack is that high. It has a bunch of disruptive tech options, bunch of weird support moves. It can run Perish Song, although I have not indexed very heavily into that with the rest of my draft. It also, of course, gets Shadow Tag, one of the strongest abilities in the game, preventing opponents from switching. So, one thing that's nice about Gengar, and again, there wasn't any specific plan that I had in mind when I drafted it, but one thing that's nice about it as a Pokemon is it's just so good that there are a lot of different things you can do with it, and it can show up and play its role regardless, right? This is not to say that I didn't think about supporting Gengar with the rest of my draft. I did think about supporting Gengar, and I took some steps to try to do that, but my final draft might not look like exactly what you expect from a Gengar team, and that's partly because I felt like Mega Gengar is just such a strong Pokemon in its own right that one thing that could make my draft better would be to focus on building out other modes and trust Mega Gengar to play its role independent of the supports around it to an extent, although I do also try to have some good supports for it, right? Team building is complicated, but it's kind of like people draw analogies all the time between draft leagues and actual professional sports leagues. I mean, not usually very seriously, right? We just use references like coach and roster, and we make reference with our team names, but I am to some extent looking for Gengar to be the star player that can show up and do its job regardless, while I try to have the right structures in place for the role players. Again, it's more complicated than that. I did try to have some things that complement Mega Gengar. but that is part of the approach that I took in building this team. This is supposed to be Austin Matthews carrying his own line while the other stars are gathered on another line, or something like that. I don't know. That said, another reason this might not look like a typical Mega Gengar team right now is that I kind of wanted Incineroar in round 2. Incineroar is a Pokemon that I'm generally pretty suspicious of in a draft league. I have had it before when I was the replacement coach for the Alaskan Absols in PDL Season 6. Stepped in mid-season and took over someone else's draft. They had Incineroar, and I found Incineroar not actually very useful to a lot of the game plans that I was workshopping there, and I kind of came away with the impression that I think a lot of people have gotten playing VGC-style draft leagues, that in a draft league format where you're workshopping a specific game plan that you're trying to use to counter your opponent's team and impose your will in the game, Incineroar doesn't always complement that as well as it does as a role-compressing answer to a lot of different threats in standard VGC where you don't know what you're going to face round by round. So I found Incineroar kind of underwhelming in draft in the past, but it complements Mega Gengar so well that despite everything I've said in the last couple minutes up to this point, I was pretty sure that I wanted it in round 2. Fake Out Pressure is a strong support for Gengar. If I wanted to build a Perish Trap mode, the Fake Out and Parting Shot from Incineroar does a lot of work there. Intimidate makes it easier for Gengar to stick around and take hits. Incineroar as a Dark type covers some of Gengar's weaknesses. I've used Gengar and Incineroar as a duo a fair bit recently. I think we get the idea here, but the problem was Incineroar got drafted in round 1 by, I've now learned, a coach who's very new to competitive Pokemon, but likes that Pokemon and figured because it was expensive in points, it was probably good and should be grabbed early before getting sniped because it's one of their favorites. So with Incineroar not being an option, I went in another familiar, pretty similar direction, and in round 2 I drafted Grimmsnarl. Now, Grimmsnarl doesn't bring everything to the table that Incineroar did, but I'm really not upset about this being my Incineroar substitute. I think it was a very solid option here. Grimmsnarl gives me screen support. It gives me speed control with a bunch of different speed disruption options boosted by Prankster. It gives me... the Dark and Fairy typing is really interesting next to Gengar because, of course, Gengar is weak to, among other things, Ghost, Psychic, and Dark. Actually, that's all of its weaknesses other than Ground. But Grimmsnarl, with its Dark and Fairy typing, covers 3 of those right there. And you don't think of Grimmsnarl generally as an offensive Pokemon, but it actually hits pretty hard with that base 120 attack stat. And it gets some strong Dark and Fairy moves that I can tech on if I want. That said, most of the time I probably want Grimmsnarl to be a Prankster support, and what do you know, it's not Incineroar, but it gets Fake Out, it gets Parting Shot, and then it gets a few options that Incineroar doesn't, like notably... again, those screens and various speed control options. What's crazy to me looking at the information that I've gathered here for the slide is I will probably run Prankster on Grimmsnarl every single time that I bring it. It's kind of crazy to imagine that I possibly wouldn't, but it gets multiple good abilities. Like, Frisk is a solid... this is a closed team sheet draft league. Frisk is a solid ability to scout items if for some reason I'm ever running a turbo offensive Grimmsnarl and I don't want Prankster. Pickpocket's not that bad either for stealing an item. Most likely I'd run Frisk if I ever didn't run Prankster, but most likely I'd just run Prankster every single week. That's probably what'll happen. But yeah, I think Grimmsnarl is a solid complement to Gengar in the ways that I described. And the other thing is, when I was thinking about what I wanted to build out around Gengar, Gengar is a fast, frail attacker. I was kind of feeling like I maybe wanted a slower, bulkier mode as well, and maybe I would want a Trick Room mode on this team to complement Gengar and give me a few different things that I can throw at opponents, make it hard to prepare for this team. And Grimmsnarl enables those things very well with all of its Prankster disruption options and with the ability to use Fake Out and screens to give cover to a Trick Room setter or something like that. So it was another kind of expensive pick right after I spent a lot of points already on Mega Gengar, but I was pretty sure Grimmsnarl would be well worth it. And I did not waste time from here getting to that the basic idea for that bulky setup mode. As my 3rd round pick, I did save some points on this one, was Hisuian Goodra. And by the way, saving the points was something I considered. In the VG-Series Draft League, the Regulation MA League I played recently, I did not have an issue with my points budget. I felt like I didn't have to worry about it very much, and I still got a lot of strong Pokemon and a pretty broken team overall. But part of why it worked out that way for me was that without stressing too much about my points budget, I was keeping an eye out for value picks throughout the draft. And so I got Pokemon like Palafin and Jolteon that I thought were probably priced lower than they should be, and they turned out to be pretty cost effective over the course of the season. And so although I was not stressing about my points here either, I was keeping an eye out for bargains. And that's not really why I landed on Hisuian Goodra. There was a lot that I liked about it independent of its point value, but I was very happy when I saw how few points it cost as well. Hisuian Goodra, as we can see from the stats, is massively bulky. And especially that high base special defense is good to see, because Hisuian Goodra has multiple ways to boost its physical defense. So you get one turn of setup. You know, I buy time for it with like Grimmsnarl Fake Out or a Parting Shot to weaken something, or Gengar trapping something not very threatening on the field, maybe disabling an attack that it has. Already I have multiple ways to buy time for Goodra to set up. And I get a couple defense boosts, and like, what is knocking this thing out? I mean, some things are, right? But it's not going to be easy, especially because I can run Shell Armor on it, which I didn't even realize during the draft. I didn't remember what its abilities are, but I can run Shell Armor on it, and then they can't even crit it. And you also can't poison it because it's a steel type. You can burn it. So already I have excellent supports in place for Goodra to be enormously hard for my opponents to remove. And then it complements Gengar because it does get body press, right? Hang on. Why am I doubting myself right now? I definitely drafted it believing that it gets body press, and that gives me some more cover into Gengar's Dark type weakness. Dark types being especially threatening to Gengar. Yeah, of course it gets body press. I don't know why I was second guessing that live while recording. So I was pretty sure I wanted a fighting type of this draft, but for quite a while from this point on, I was open to the idea that Goodra was going to be my fighting type. We'll see how that idea aged. On top of that, Goodra also has pretty reasonable attacking stats. Like, they're not crazy high, but they're not bad, right? So I can run an offensive Goodra and just click Draco Meteor into something, or whatever. I'm focusing heavily on the defense boosting body press stuff because, like, that's the main value I see in this Pokemon, and I think it's okay to say it out loud because I think probably most opponents could see that coming. But there are plenty of other things that it can do if I think the matchup is right. And I've already talked a little bit about the synergy with Gengar. I'll also note that Hisuian Goodra being a steel type means that if for some reason I want spread damage with Gengar, I can click Sludge Wave next to this. I don't know that that's ever going to be worth a Gengar move slot, but the option has crossed my mind. Now, it's not perfect synergy all around, right? Like, Gengar and Goodra do have a shared weakness to ground, which I do have to take seriously, but still. Already, with the Pokemon that I've drafted, it's going to be really hard for opponents to remove this thing, and if they focus heavily on doing that, then they might leave themselves open to Gengar offense, getting knocked out by that because they're focused on trying to remove Goodra, but if they focus on trying to remove Gengar, then maybe they leave themselves vulnerable to Goodra setting up. Already, I feel like I have a pretty hard team here for opponents to deal with. But let's talk about that ground weakness, because the next Pokemon, well, it helps to cover that. It's definitely, in part, an answer to ground-type attacks, but it also brings a lot more to the table in this draft. And a funny thing happened, actually, in round 4. I was almost sniped by the person drafting immediately before me, but they didn't manage to snipe me, and the reason was I changed my mind pretty last minute about what I wanted. I was thinking I wanted Mousehold for Friend Guard, for a normal type to pair with Gengar and give it some more cover from ghost type attacks and whatnot, for Population Bomb hitting things hard. I thought Mousehold could be pretty strong on this team. It could enable some Perish Trap stuff as well if I ever want to go that route. And then, like, before I went to bed one night, and when I woke up the next morning, it was my turn to pick. Before I went to bed, I was looking at the draft board again, and I realized there was something a little bit cheaper than Mousehold that brought a lot of other things to the table that could be pretty valuable to what I've built so far, and I decided that Mousehold was not what I wanted, which was good, because Mousehold was taken immediately before my pick, but that still left me able to get Vivillon. So there we go. There's a bit of an answer to ground types, but like I said, Vivillon does a lot more than that. Those stats are not much to look at, but it gets Friend Guard, much like Mousehold, so it can make Goodra even harder to remove just by sitting next to it, or make Gengar harder to remove, right? Gengar's not as frail next to Vivillon as it is in other situations. But I can also run Compound Eyes and get the accuracy boosted Sleep Powder. If I want to add a Trick Room mode to this team later in the draft, which I was thinking I probably did, then Vivillon can create openings to set Trick Room up by just putting threats to sleep, like it does in regular VGC these days. Or, you know, it can create openings for all kinds of other things, like Goodra setup or like Gengar just attacking. There's a lot that I can do by putting an opponent to sleep quickly. Otherwise, yeah, I have the Friend Guard. I have Rage Powder, so I can redirect attacks away from one of my more threatening Pokemon and into Vivillon. Rage Powder is, of course, worse than Follow Me because it doesn't work on grass types, but that is specifically the only exception right now compared to Follow Me, because Safety Goggles and I don't think Safety Goggles are in the game. Terra Grass certainly isn't, so Rage Powder is still pretty good. Vivillon also gets Pollen Puff, I believe. I think I've checked that, so I didn't get Sinistra in this draft, but I have a way to heal something if it'll help me with a slower, grindier game plan. And Vivillon can also be an offensive threat itself. I can set it up with Quiver Dance. That'll suddenly some of those stats will look more impressive, and maybe, you know, that's probably not like plan A with this Pokemon, but maybe some of the supports that I have on this team, like Grimmsnarl, like Gengar, forcing non-threatening not as threatening Pokemon onto the field, mean that I can find openings in the right matchup for Vivillon to set up. I think that's the less likely thing that I do with this Pokemon, but I have the option any given week. From here, what did I draft next after Vivillon? Hang on. I actually don't remember, so we're just going to go to the next image and see. Oh yeah, I drafted Serena. Okay, well, it's kind of fair that I forgot this one, because I was pretty sure I knew what 2 Pokemon I wanted next. This happens to me sometimes when I draft. I have at least a couple of picks in mind, and I want to make them quickly so they don't get sniped, but then as my pick gets closer, something else comes to my attention on the board, and I go, oh wait, that could actually be really valuable to have, and oh wait, that might get taken before something else that I'm thinking about and is harder to replace. Maybe I should move those other picks down, still hope they don't get sniped, and grab this thing that I'm just thinking about now. And sometimes that's a good idea, sometimes it's not. But that is what happened with Serena. I wasn't thinking about Serena until pretty close to my pick, and then I was thinking about it. But I like Serena mainly for Queenly Why am I struggling to say it? Queenly Majesty. That's the main thing I like about Serena here. I have Pokemon like Grimmsnarl with Fake Out and Vivillon with Sleep Powder to enable some of my game plans, right? To disrupt what the opponent wants to do so that they can't mess with whatever I'm trying to do with a Pokemon like Gengar or Goodra. And one thing that approach is vulnerable to is a faster Fake Out from an opponent. So something like the Incineroar that was drafted could give me trouble if I don't specifically cover for it with the game plans where I'm trying to disrupt in similar ways with my own Fake Out, but maybe it doesn't work out for me. I also was planning to get a second Fake Out user at this point in the draft, so... but especially when I just picked Vivillon, giving myself that cover so I can click Sleep Powder or something a little more safely in some positions, I thought could be worthwhile. So that's reason number 1. Oh, and also protecting Gengar from priority attacks, because Gengar is very fast and not very bulky, so priority is a good way for opponents to deal with it. I figured being able to stop them with Serena could make that a little bit trickier for them. Plus, my own Grimmsnarl, if it wants to mess with an opponent with priority, my drafting Serena means nobody else in my pool can have it, right? So that's one fewer way for opponents to deal with that. Queenly Majesty was the main thing, but that might not have been enough to draft Serena in the middle here by itself. But thinking about it some more, Serena has pretty good offensive coverage off of a decent attack stat. It gives me some more cover into ground types, notably, because even with Vivillon on the team, right, I'm still kind of ground weak, starting off with Gengar, Grimmsnarl, Goodra. Grimmsnarl is not weak to ground, but it doesn't help with that either. So I wanted more cover into ground types. Serena could give me that, along with Queenly Majesty. Could hit them pretty hard with things like Power Whip, Trop Kick, even Triple Axle, which could also maybe hit some kinds of dragon types and stuff that could give me a little bit of trouble at this point. And while there's no Assault Vest in this game, a classic item that Serena likes, there is the Choice Scarf, right? And Serena's speed stat is kind of middling. It's not a bad Choice Scarf user. My team so far mostly doesn't have anyone else that really needs the Choice Scarf. I think the only one that's really interested in it at all most weeks is Vivillon. And Vivillon's not always going to be wanting it, so Serena being able to throw off strong attacks with decent coverage with a Choice Scarf and pivot out with U-turn and so on also made it pretty appealing. So Queenly Majesty was the main thing. Queenly Majesty and a ground check, I should say. But then, yeah, I figured Tsareena brought enough to the table offensively to also be of some value there, and has some support options as well. But this did bump 2 other picks down the list. I knew what 2 Pokemon I wanted next, and then I prioritized Tsareena over both of them, but I still wanted both of them in the next 2 rounds. I was hoping they would not be sniped, and it worked out for me. Neither one was. Next was Mega Gyarados. So this is my second Mega, and it took me a little while to figure out which Gyarados form I wanted. I was really thinking about just taking regular Gyarados for a while. It would have cost 1 point fewer, which is not a huge difference. I was not points pinching in this draft. And I was interested in regular Gyarados because of the item slot. In standard VGC, I think some people kind of take the view right now that Gyarados doesn't have a whole lot of items that are very valuable to it, so you might as well run the Mega Stone on some teams. But in a draft league, I could think of a lot of items that could be pretty valuable to Gyarados. I could see Gyarados wanting to use Leftovers, Choice Scarf, Citrus Berry, Wakan Berry. I think I had a 5th one, but I've forgotten it now. I guess you could run like a Lumberry to cover for Will-O-Wisp, but like opening up that item slot could free me to run, yeah, bulky Dragon Dance set with a healing item some week, Choice Scarf, Moxie for fast KOs and snowballing with that ability another week. There was a lot that I liked about the idea of regular Gyarados, but in the end, I decided that the thing I liked most was being able to change its type. Water and flying typing is not necessarily bad, but it's pretty vulnerable in some matchups. And I'm not even saying that being a dark type is necessarily better for being a flying type than being a flying type for Gyarados, but I think having some control over which of those it is, having the option to change it if that's favorable to the position at hand, was something that could be pretty valuable. Gyarados gives me another answer to ground types. I started off with a notable ground weakness on this team, and then I used 3 picks in a row to draft strong ground type answers. Not a coincidence. That flying typing also helpful, giving it a ground immunity, but also like genuinely every ground type in Champions right now is a physical attacker. I know because I was team building for standard MB recently and I looked for a special ground type and I couldn't find one. So the Intimidate is valuable, and of course the Water Stab. But then if I'm facing like a Sand team, which there is in my pool or something like that, right? Maybe I don't want Gyarados to be weak to Rock in certain positions. So the flying typing might be beneficial to me sometimes, but getting rid of it also might be beneficial to me sometimes. And I decided that it was close, but that felt a little bit more valuable to me than Gyarados' item slot when you combine it with the fact that it also gets a bunch of stat boosts. Apart from being another answer to ground types. So I do think Gyarados can tech into some Gengar modes for that role. Gyarados also gives me another win con that I could work toward, right? I'm not running Moxie Choice Scarf with this, but I can still go fairly bulky if I want, or more offensive. I have options. Once again, this team has a lot of options that could be hard for opponents to prepare for. I can set up with Dragon Dance. What do you know? I have a bunch of supports for setup already on my team. Some of the same things that could be beneficial to Goodra could also be beneficial to Mega Gyarados. It's a strong physical attacker, so it complements Gengar, the special attacker, in that way. It also complements Gengar by being a dark type because it covers some of Gengar's weaknesses, and Gengar covers some of its weaknesses. Gyarados is weak to Grass and Fairy. Gengar handles Grass and Fairy types pretty nicely. So obviously one downside is I can't Mega both of them in the same game. It would be nice if I could. I'm going to have to probably make some tough decisions on which one to Mega in some matchups, but yeah, it's just another offensive powerhouse that complements Gengar really well and is pretty well served by the supports that I already have on my team. So I think Mega Gyarados, even though it was obviously not the first Mega I drafted and further down the priority list for me in this draft, is probably going to be pretty good, at least some of the time this season. And like I keep saying, I knew exactly what I wanted to pair Gyarados with, because I don't think I'll be Mega Evolving Gyarados every single time I bring it. And that electric weakness is a problem, especially when I can't run a Wakan Berry. And hey, I already told you that I wanted a second Fake Out user to continue to enable my setup plans. So I took Pikachu in round 7. It also only cost 1 point, which, I don't know, to me Pikachu seemed like crazy valuable. Seemed like crazy value for a 1 point Pokemon. Obviously Pikachu is not like a world beater. You can see those stats. If it's running a Light Ball, its offenses are doubled, which actually makes it hit pretty hard. But if it's running a Light Ball, it can't run like a Focus Sash or something, so there are trade-offs. It's a pretty weak Pokemon in some ways, but it's a pretty solid support Pokemon. that I think could easily have been worth more than 1 point. And Raichu was like 10 points, so this is me bargain hunting a little bit again. I saved a lot of points by choosing this over Raichu, and at this point in the draft, I thought that was probably worthwhile. I've already said the main things. Pikachu gives me a second Fake Out, and it gives me Lightning Rod to cover Gyarados. It also has some other support options. It's good at spreading Paralysis. I think it gets Faint. If not, I was spreading misinformation to someone the other day. But yeah, Grimmsnarl and Pikachu are not exactly Incineroar and Rillaboom, but I think dual Fake Out could be pretty valuable to this team for obvious reasons. Good way to help Mega Gyarados or Goodra or something get going. And covering the electric weakness could be valuable because I don't think I'll Mega Evolve Gyarados all the time. And Pikachu is like reasonably fast, right? So it can throw off some disruptive options into a lot of opponents. Even if I don't get to run the Focus Sash or the Sash is already broken in some week. Pikachu, I was definitely not the only one who identified Pikachu as a 1-point Pokemon of interest. I think a few people were saying that I'd sniped them with this pick. I'm not sure how they're feeling now, hearing me say that I had originally planned to take Pikachu 1 round earlier than I did, and I was just crossing my fingers when I took Serena and hoping that Pikachu would still be there 2 rounds later. But, yeah, the savings for Raichu I think will probably be worth it. And that said, we're 7 picks into my draft now. I'm feeling really good about what I've gotten up to this point. Like I said, I went into the draft without a plan. And obviously I'd had Gyarados and Pikachu on my radar for a while, but I was not sure what I wanted to come after them. I will say, the rest of this draft, I don't think I figured out super well. I didn't really find a combination of Pokemon that I felt exactly satisfied and comfortable with. There were other options that I considered that I'm still thinking about even after the draft ended. And I would not be surprised if I do some tinkering, make some roster moves with these last few slots, although I'll definitely take at least a week or two to evaluate what I have beforehand. But there are some alternatives still on the board that I'm already thinking about. But while I didn't have a plan for the rest of my slots and the point combinations never came together in a completely satisfying way, I did have some ideas of a couple of things that I wanted. And one of them I've already talked about. 2 of them I've already talked about. I felt like I probably wanted a Trick Room mode, and I felt like I probably wanted a Fighting type to complement Mega Gengar. I have some answers to Dark types already, but the synergy there is pretty clear with the Fighting type helping to deal with Dark, and with Mega Gengar being at least an offensive check to Psychic types and able to deal with things like Poison types that could resist Fighting Stab. I thought an actual Fighting type could be somewhat valuable here. But I think the main thing at this point was that I was thinking I wanted a strong Trick Room attacker. I have a bad habit in drafting where I either commit hard to Trick Room from early in the draft, like I did last PDL season, or I intend to draft a Trick Room mode, but then I treat it like kind of an afterthought, and what I end up with is kind of lackluster. I do think I kind of did the latter this time. I do think that I'm not super happy with the Trick Room mode that I got, but I did get one very strong Trick Room attacker, and that was Conkeldurr. This pick took me a while because I could have had Mega Crabominable for 1 point more. And I'm still thinking about it. It's still there on the board. Honestly, the novelty of drafting more than 2 Megas was part of the appeal to me. But also, Crabominable does a lot of the same things as Conkeldurr. While with the trade-off that drafting Mega Crabominable means that I can't use its item slot for like a Resistance Berry or something. And its defensive typing is worse. Those are the main issues that I have there. The 1 point that I saved by taking Conkeldurr instead, I could have figured it out. I do end up spending my whole points budget, but there were other configurations that I could have done. But Conkeldurr is a slow, very powerful attacker. There's no Flame Orb in the game, so I can't self-activate Guts. At least not that way. I guess I could like slide Will-O-Wisp it or something. I don't think it's super likely that I do that, but it hits very hard, it has good coverage, and it's not completely relegated to being a slow Pokemon that opponents could exploit outside of Trick Room because it has a very strong Mach Punch. So I have that priority option for it to still do something in tough positions. But also, and this was a key difference compared to Mega Crabominable, because it gets to have its item slot, I can run a Resist Berry or something like that, so Conkeldurr can take a key hit. I may have some games where I want to set Trick Room and attack with Conkeldurr, and then bring Gengar in later when Trick Room is over, or bring Gengar in earlier, or do some other thing, who knows what. Obviously, I do have a Trick Room setter yet. It's Mega Gengar, but I don't have a better one than that. yet, but that was something on my radar for after this pick. But Conkeldurr, I mean, that's basically what there is to say about it. It's not the most interesting pick. I feel like I went a little boring with this one, but it gives me a fighting type and it gives me a slow attacker, which were two things I wanted. Two more things I wanted, a Trick Room Setter, and a fire type to complete the Fire Water Grass core with Tsareena and Mega Gyarados. So my next pick was Armarouge. Now, this is another one that I'm not sure about, because Armarouge is not an amazing Trick Room Pokemon. It's relatively fast, 4-1. And not the bulkiest, although the defense stat is pretty good. There were probably more consistent Trick Room Setters available at this point. There were quite a few, slower, bulkier ones. Some of them still there on the board. So again, I can swap Armarouge out later if I want. But this was late draft. Finish the checklist, tick everything off that I want, if possible, if reasonable time. And I wasn't finding another combination of Pokemon that would get me all the things that I wanted from the slot. I take a slower, bulkier Trick Room Setter, then I don't get a Fire type to finish my Fire Water Grass core, or there's something else that I'm missing. So, like I said, I don't feel like I have much of a Trick Room mode here, mostly because the Trick Room Setters are just not the most inspiring. But Armarouge gives me that option if the matchup is right for it. I think it pairs reasonably well with Conkeldurr, thanks to that Psychic typing. It gives me that offensive coverage to group with some of the cores that I have here. It has some other support options like Wide Guard and stuff, but yeah, mostly it's here to be the token Fire type and the token Trick Room Setter. It's a good Pokemon. I think that I can probably do some good things with it, but I may be open to other opportunities with this roster slot, but this is a very checklist kind of pick. Armarouge does some specific things that I was pretty sure I wanted, and sometimes that's not the worst thing, right? I have a lot of strong Pokemon and some very powerful combinations higher up in my roster. We are in the role players part of the draft now, and if I can find the right way to make Armarouge play its role now, then the fact that I'm kind of underwhelmed by my own pick right now is not that big a deal. This Pokemon could come through and do what it needs to do, make its 3-pointers and so on, right? And we can be good with that. And that's even more true for the last Pokemon that I took in the draft, because with 8 points left, there really wasn't much that was speaking to me. I'll tell you some of what I was thinking about. I was thinking about Vanillux, just to put a Choice Scarf on it and click Blizzard next to Gengar. Mega Gengar pairs pretty well with Ice types because they cover its ground weakness. And Vanillux would also give me an answer to opposing weather, which honestly, after the draft, I think maybe I should have taken more seriously. I think Vanillux might have been worth drafting for Snow Warning alone. I do not have the option to swap it onto my team now, because Vanillux was, I believe, the very last pick in the draft. It was drafted by someone else after my last pick. The reason I didn't take Vanillux was setting Snow and spamming Blizzard is very good, but I couldn't really think of much else to do with it. And so, I wasn't sure, but honestly, the Snow alone might have been worthwhile. I will say here, because I forgot to say earlier, in regular VGC, Mega Gengar is pretty often paired with Alolan Ninetales, partly because Ninetales disrupts opponents' weather and covers the ground weakness. I was interested in Alolan Ninetales in this draft, and then for several rounds in the middle of the draft, I got mixed up and thought that Alolan Ninetales had already been drafted in my pool. I think what happened was it was drafted in the other pool, and I saw the message and got mixed up on which pool it was in. But by the time I realized my mistake and that Alolan Ninetales was still available, it didn't fit my draft plan anymore. Like, I wouldn't have been able to afford it with this pick. But also, I was zeroing in on things like Conkeldurr and Armarouge, so I still could have had my Ice type with Vanillux, but yeah, I wasn't sure about that one. I thought about Mega Drampa, because that would scratch my itch for a third Mega, and it would also give me another Trick Room attacking option. But I wasn't feeling that amazed by it. I just couldn't really think of what Mega Drampa could do that really stood out to me, and a third Mega is kind of awkward, right? So I need to have a better idea of what the specific game plans are for it, that I'm committing to Mega Evolving it and not Gengar or Gyarados. But Mega Drampa is still on the board. That is an option as long as it stays there. I was looking at a little further down the board. I had an option in mind where I would save some points at the end of the draft, which is totally fine. A totally fine thing to do, but I'm going to keep that one quiet, because that I think is the one I'm most likely, of the options I'm considering about now, that I'm most likely to change to, but I don't know if that's going to happen. And so I made a very openly uninspired pick in the draft channel. I was like, well, I guess I'm taking this. I don't know that this Pokemon brings very much to the table, but it does fit well with some of the plans that I have in mind already. And there are a couple of very silly, funny things that I can do with it if I find a matchup that I think is right for them, which it might not be the case. I took Snorlax in the last round. It's a slow, bulky Pokemon. It can also be the focus of a setup mode, if for some reason I prefer that to Goodra or Gyarados in a particular matchup. It can do some stuff in Trick Room. There are a couple of more out there things that I might want to try with Snorlax at some point. It has some weird strategies available to it. I'm not sure there's any matchup where I'll actually want to bring them, but I do have a couple of fun, silly ideas. But honestly, I won't be surprised if I trade Snorlax away. Not even very long into the season. I'm not saying right now that I'm going to. There's no plan to right now. But it could happen. You've been warned. If it does happen, it'll probably be part of a larger reconfiguration of those bottom 3 slots, but there are other Pokemon that I could take instead of Snorlax in just a one for one swap. We'll see. But yeah, Snorlax has some fun setup sets, and hey, it's a ghost immunity to pair with Mega Gengar. It's not the worst thing for this team. Not trying to dump on it too much. It's a good mon. There's a reason I chose it over Vanilluxe or Mega Drampa or something, but I'm still considering my options. And that is the draft for the Season 11 Halifax Masquerainmen. Overall, I'm not completely sure how I feel about this team, because again, I do kind of feel like my draft went off the rails a little bit toward the end, or rather, I just hadn't laid any rails for that last part. But I think it's going to be a frustrating draft for opponents to prepare for. There are a lot of different things that I can throw at them, and it's hard to cover for all of them, and that's a valuable thing in a draft league. We'll see now in the next few weeks whether I make the most use of it. But we'll also see how my draft compares to the competition, because it is time to meet the other teams. And I have done something different this season. It was not my idea. Someone else suggested it, but I thought it was a good suggestion. And so I extended an open invitation to all other coaches in this PDL season to join me for the draft breakdowns of their own teams. And quite a few took me up on it, actually more than I expected, especially since they were limited by my availability. I basically just set aside a block of several hours in one day where I said people could jump in a voice channel with me and break down their teams that they wanted. Not everyone did. That's fine. Some might not have wanted to, or some might not have had the same availability as me. But yeah, you are going to hear from quite a few of the other coaches in this next stretch, which is a lot of fun. But we're going to start with the rest of Pool B. So this is my immediate competition in the regular season. I will be playing a round robin over 9 weeks against these teams. And we start with the holders of the very first pick, Snowpoint Snorunts. Well, there we go. This is one of the coaches who joined me already in an already recorded team breakdown, so I'll just put that on for you right now. All right, I'm here with Reckless Trico, PDL Commissioner and coach of the Snowpoint Snorunts, with a draft of Mega Gardevoir, Male Meowstic, Goldango, Whimsicott, Blazebreed Tauros, Ariados, Fan Rotom, Mega Feraligatr, Hisuian Samurott, and Vanilluxe. So, want to introduce your draft here and tell us something about what you were cooking?
Yeah, okay, so I had first pick for Pool B, and I thought to myself when going into it, I don't really want to use one of the main megas known in Regulation MA or MD, okay. And I had a lot of fun when at the NAIC side events using Mega Gardevoir, so that's what inspired me to use Mega Gardevoir for this draft and build the whole team around it. So then as first pick, of course, I have wheel pick as well, so I'm able to get a bunch of different duos. So when it came to round 2, I was like, okay, I need something to support Gardevoir, so we'll go with Meowstic, and Goldango is something that is able to kind of defensively support Gardevoir while also providing ultimate offense.
Yeah.
But I think the real surprise to me was being able to pick up Whimsicott in round 4. Round 4 or 5, because Tauros had picked up along with it. I wasn't initially planning to get Whimsicott on this team, but I needed speed control, and I figured Whimsicott would just be able to provide very nice speed control, which then paired nicely with my next 2 picks of Rotom and Ariados. These were 2-point mons, so I was able to get a very cheap budget core to help offset my point cost, because the first half of this team is pretty expensive. Whimsicott, Goldango, Gardevoir, even Meowstic, I think, at 11 points. So being able to get cheap redirection and even like cheap Electro Web from Rotom Fan felt like it was very good for the budgeting. But from the start, when I picked Gardevoir, I always knew I was going to pick up Mega Feraligatr.
Okay.
Because I have been a big Mega Feraligatr believer since the day one of MA. I was using it on day one of MA ladder, but the problem that Mega Feraligatr has, at least in regular ladders, is its typing isn't really good on ladder. Because it's got a really alright speed tier at 78, it kind of needs that Tailwind support, needs to get a Dragon Dance off to really get its speed up. And you just have stuff like Mega Floette, you have Garchomp running around, which makes Mega Feraligatr a little hard to maneuver in regular ladder, but it's got base 160 attack coming off of a Dragonite ability boosting its Double Edge, which, I mean, it's KOing a lot of things, and even before it Megas, it has Sheer Force, so I could like leave it in base form, go with Sheer Force, Ice Punch, or Liquidation for coverage. The Hisuian Samurott pick was something because this team has no Ghost Resists. It is a big weakness of the team. It is very prone to being just breaking down by like Shadow Ball, Life Orb Shadow Ball from other threats.
Oh, yeah,
so I needed
right.
something to cover for ghost types, and for 4 points I think it was relatively cheap. Could go Scarf, could do Focus Sash, Life Orb, whatever. Just pairs nicely with Gardevoir. And then Vanillix, I felt like I needed some form of way of combating weather. Like, I have that with Sunny Day on Whimsicott, I have it with Rain Dance on Meowstic. But having an automatic weather setter for cheap felt like a good thing to do. And there was no way I could get sniped on that point in the draft, as there were still, all the cheap weather setters were still available. And it just felt like Vanillix was the most interesting one. Because, I'm not sure if you know this, but it gets Ally Switch.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. I was looking at its Champions moveset, I'm like, wait a minute, what? So, this could be a very interesting Pokemon. I'm not sure if I bring it to every match, but maybe we can try something cool with it, which is the main reason why I went with it. And that's essentially the team. I didn't mention Tauros that much, but Tauros is just there for another physical attacker, also pairs nicely with Gardevoir defensively. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I like it. I'm a little curious on what you meant about not being able to get sniped on Vanillux at that point. Of course, it was the very last pick of the draft. That's correct, I think.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about round... Well, I'm just going to tell you, if you were talking about round 10 generally, I was very strongly considering Vanillux for my last pick.
Well, I was more so meaning that I was also looking at both Abomasnows as my backup if Vanillux was sniped. So there was no real way I could get sniped for a Snow Setter. I just happened to be able to get the best one out of the 3 options I was looking at. I
understand now, yeah. I was thinking about Vanillux just to probably put a Choice Scarf on it and click Blizzard next to my Gengar or something.
So I'm actually in an MA league at the moment, and that is exactly what the person who does have Vanillux uses it with. And then they have like Mega Dragonite, who also will be clicking Blizzard right next to it.
Oh wow, that's fun.
It's a really interesting, fun team. But Vanillux is more here for a flex role, and I think for a round 10 pick, I'd say that's fine.
Yeah, I think that's pretty solid. I mean, everything you explained makes perfect sense to me. Looks like a solid team. I was kind of surprised by the back-to-back Water-type starters during the draft, but I hadn't noticed. You're right. You have... Your main offensive pieces probably are Mega Gardevoir and Goldango, and then they're both weak to Ghost, and you have that
and
one
then the
resist.
Supportive option in Meowstic is also weak to Ghost, so I don't really have much in terms of defensive profile against Ghost. Yeah. I was initially going with Mega Sharpedo initially, and just do 2 Megas back-to-back, just because I thought maybe having a 3 Mega team would be fun. But Sari from Pool A convinced me that Samurott would be a better choice for cheaper, which makes sense.
Yeah, fair. I mean, I didn't find the nerve to draft 3 megas without even talking with Sari about it. But yeah, I do like a lot the Mega Gardevoir, Goldango, both very powerful attackers that could use some strong supports. Being surrounded with, let's see, Meowstic, Whimsicott, Ariados, Rotom, as you said, can give them some support options as well. You have the Psy Spam option with Meowstic, Psychic Terrain if you want. You have Tailwind for them, Cotton Spore. Pretty much anything you need. Oh, who's this?
Hello.
It's me, hello. Tis
it's
Mr.
you.
Irish Taco.
It's you. Welcome. We're just going over Trico's team for my draft recap. I guess you could chime in if you want.
Holy. I mean, I don't have a lot to say. I mean, I like the Gardevoir.
For sure, I like the Gardevoir too.
And I like the ice cream one.
We were just talking about the ice cream one for a while.
Oh yeah? Nice. What's your kind of take on it?
On the team?
My take.
Go ahead, Trico.
My take on my team is it either is able to support Goldango and Gardevoir, or I lose, and that's the team.
Yeah.
I see.
There are probably some other things you can do, but that's the main thing you're set up to do. I have, in the bottom left corner, I always have one Pokemon that I'm looking forward to seeing over the course of the season. Really, I just do that so that corner isn't empty. But Mega Feraligatr caught my attention because I don't think it was drafted in the other pool. And it's not...
Regular Feraligatr was drafted, though, which I think is interesting because MB actually introduces the Life Orb, I think it might actually be undervalued at 3 points. Because that's Sheer Force Life Orb boosted, Ice Punch, Liquidation, and I think it gets a few other moves like Body Slams that could be very interesting on base Feraligatr. So it's actually putting out very solid, it gets Crunch, putting out very solid offense with Sheer Force Life Orb. So I think there is a trade-off between Mega Feraligatr and regular Feraligatr now. And I'm just hoping to see that the Dragon coverage is something that was worth it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely interested with this team being largely built around Mega Gardevoir. I mean, pretty clearly it was the first pick. I'm definitely interested in seeing what Mega Feraligatr can do here and there. And you have a good Fairy Dragon Steel core, right, with Goldango and even non-Mega Gardevoir.
Mm-hmm.
So they can definitely complement each other in that way. All right, unless you have any last thoughts, I guess I'll move on to the next one.
No, that would be all. Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks for being here. Next we have the Revolting Raichus, and I said there was a sand team in my pool. Here it is. Mega Tyranitar, Mega Garchomp, Corviknight, Heatform Rotom, Trevenant, Primarina, Toxicroak, Mega Steelix, Houndstone, and Hisuian Quillfish, is that right? I think that's... Oh no, that's not even Hisuian, that's Jotonian Quillfish. Whoops. No, regular Quillfish. I didn't even use the wrong image. I don't know why I got mixed up there. That mean look on its face, I guess. Anyway, it looks like a dark type. Anyway, yeah, this is a pretty standard sand team, except they did go 3 megas. They have all 3 of Mega Tyranitar, Mega Garchomp, and Mega Steelix. Notably, that means that none of them have any other items they can use. They are required to hold their Mega Stones, but I don't think that's going to be much of an issue for this team because all of those Megas are super strong, and the Pokemon will probably be able to get by without other items. And Steelix is kind of more of a niche pick anyway. You're probably focusing on Mega Tyranitar or Mega Garchomp most weeks. Being able to Mega Evolve either one of those, depending on the position at hand, is a pretty strong bit of flexibility for this team. And Steelix, I don't know if it's specific, if it's a matchup piece for certain specific matchups, but yeah, if they have some game plans for it, that could be a solid change of pace, being of course a much slower and bulkier threat. I also like that the 3 types that are immune to sand damage are Rock, Ground, and Steel, and they have a Mega Rock type, a Mega Ground type, and Steelix is also a Ground type, but for my purposes here, I'll call it a Mega Steel type. That's a lot of offensive power already, especially with 2 of their Megas having Sand Force. They get some extra weather control from Mega Tyranitar, because if the opponent changes the weather, they can Mega Evolve to get Sandstream back up immediately. Corviknight is a great complement. There's a reason it's run in standard sand teams pretty often. All of their Megas on this team are weak to ground. Corviknight is immune to ground, and It's a setup threat that opponents have to take very seriously because it can get boosted and run away with the game. It also has Mirror Armor to bounce Intimidate back on the opponent, so the physical attacking Megas have less need to be afraid of that. It also, being a ground immunity, can sit next to its partner Mega Garchomp and not be afraid of the Earthquake. It also has its own weaknesses to Fire and Electric covered by Mega Tyranitar and Mega Garchomp. What do you know? So the Corviknight Garchomp synergy is especially strong. Heat Rotom brings a lot of the same things to the table. It also is immune to ground. It also can sit next to Earthquake clicking Garchomp. Rotom and Garchomp is generally a pretty strong combination. They complement each other pretty well. Rotom can give this team some extra speed control. Corviknight can do that too because it gets Tailwind. But Rotom can click like Electro Web or something if it wants. I guess Trevenant gives them a Trick Room setter to pair with Mega Steelix, so that explains part of what Mega Steelix is doing here. It gives them a pretty credible Trick Room mode. Primarina, of course, synergizes well with this team as a strong special attacking water type. This team is largely pretty physical offense heavy. Rotom's a decent special attacker as well, and as a fire type, it's complemented by Primarina's water typing. In fact, they have a Fire Water Grass core with Rotom, Trevenant, and Primarina. A little bit of an unusual Fire Water Grass core, but they do have that synergy. Primarina also not the slowest Pokemon, but pretty slow, so it can play in Trick Room if it wants. But yeah, it just has a solid complementary role to the Sand offense as well. Quillfish gives them Intimidate, and I don't know, like Poison stuff. Quillfish isn't a bad mon, but I don't know exactly what it brings here. Toxicroak is interesting to me, but I could see the fighting and poison typing being valuable for certain matchups. Notably, it covers some of Tyranitar's weaknesses. And I could also see Toxicroak being very strong into rain teams with, what does it get, Dry Skin? So those may be some of the things that they were thinking about, but I don't know for sure all the details. But the Pokemon that really caught my eye for this one that I featured in the bottom left Pokemon I'm interested in slot is Houndstone, because I think Houndstone is going to take some people by surprise. I think it's a Pokemon that is kind of forgotten in standard VGC and maybe slept on by some players. I don't know that it's very good there, but I think some players have forgotten what it does, is my point. It gets Sand Rush, it gets Last Respects, so that's a fast in Sand. Not a fast Pokemon, but in Sand it's fast. Late game sweeper, right there. But it also can go bulky with whatever is the other ability it has. I think it has an ability that helps it take hits, and it can run a support set. It gets things like Will-O-Wisp and Ally Switch, I'm pretty sure. I'm second guessing whether I remember what Houndstone does as I say this, but it definitely has strong support options, or it can just go fast with Sand Rush and Last Respects. So very different roles that it can play that can be very valuable to this team. Could make it pretty hard for opponents to deal with. Next we have the Hisuian Houndstones. This team took Mega Metagross, Tyranitar, Aerodactyl, Hatterene, Hydreigon, Gliscor, Scovillain, Toxapex, Mega Meowstic, specifically male Meowstic with the ability to Mega Evolve it, and Heliolisk. So unlike in the VGC League, although it never came up there, the Mega Meowstic forms are split. They're drafted separately. I don't think anyone took the female this season. The Wolfie Draft League also did not have them split, but this one does. So we've gone from a Sand team to a Sand team, but this one is focused on Mega Metagross. It has some other strong Sand pieces in Tyranitar and Aerodactyl, of course. It has that fast Tailwind option in Aerodactyl. It can also just spam Rock Slide with two strong Rock types, taken both in the first 3 rounds. It covers some of their weaknesses with Mega Metagross. Hatterene stands out to me a little bit here because it's mostly a Trick Room Pokemon. I was going to say they have a Trick Room mode, they have Hatterene, but honestly, the Trick Room mode seems to mostly just be Hatterene. I like Tyranitar. Some of these Pokemon are not super fast. Like Tyranitar will probably underspeed some threats from opponents. Honestly, maybe this is a little bit like my so-called Trick Room mode where Conkeldurr and Snorlax are the only super slow Pokemon that I have. But as a change of pace option, if the Tailwind stuff doesn't work in a certain position, it's not the worst thing. Hatterene might find itself kind of awkwardly positioned in some matchups, but on the other hand, it could flip some matchups on their head if the opponent is focused heavily on dealing with the fast mode. That's the main obvious threat from this team. They also have that Fairy Dragon Steel core with Mega Metagross, Hatterene, and Hydreigon. That should be pretty strong. Those Pokemon complement each other pretty well. Honestly, this team feels like it could have used a stronger ground type than Gliscor because you have multiple ground immunities in Aerodactyl, Hydreigon, and Gliscor itself. Something like a Garchomp clicking Earthquake on this team could be pretty strong, but maybe Garchomp wasn't available. at the time they wanted it, or something. Maybe they didn't want it, I don't know. But Gliscor can click Earthquake next to Aerodactyl or Hydreigon. They have Redirection from Scovillain. This is not Mega Scovillain, so Redirection is kind of the main thing it does. But when you have offensive threats like Mega Metagross, Tyranitar, it's not the worst thing. Scovillain I could also see enabling some kind of mode with Meowstic and Hatterene. This is again male Meowstic, so it can run a Prankster support set before it Mega Evolves, or even instead of Mega Evolving. It does have to carry the Mega Stone, but you can just focus on whatever, Fake Out, Yawn. You can set Manual Psychic Terrain for Hatterene. You can set Manual Psychic Terrain and then Mega Evolve your Meowstic and click Expanding Force. And also click it out with Hatterene. What does Toxapex do? I don't know exactly what Toxapex brings to the table on this team, but like poisoning things is not the worst. Like obviously it's a strong answer to fairy types, but they have Mega Metagross already. Maybe they felt like they needed more to support Pokemon like Tyranitar and Hydreigon. They have other grass answers already as well, but on a team like this, I mean poison damage could be valuable to a team like this because you're trying to chip things down with the Sandstorm. Maybe you get some flinches with like Rock Slide, Aerodactyl and accumulate damage over time. Maybe you open up some KOs for like Mega Metagross Bullet Punch. That's the main thing I see with Toxapex. I think Poison Chip and like Infestation Chip, if you run that kind of set, could create some openings for the more offensive Pokemon on this team to get KOs or stack with sand damage to wear things down over time. So that's I can definitely see a case for Toxapex in some matchups off of that. And then Heliolisk, it's a fast electric type. Those are always pretty good. This is my team. Now I'm here with Mario Man, coach of the Azure Bay Chatots, with a draft of Mega Aerodactyl, Farigiraf, Ditto, Mousehold, Mega Chestnut, Skeledirge, Manectric, Politoed, Fortress, and Mega Swampert. Triple Mega jumps out at me right away, but why don't you just tell us what you've cooked up here?
Yeah, as I tend to do, I have a bit of a well-rounded type combination. Got a Firewater Grass Core of starters with two of them Megas in Swampert and Chestnut. All three of my Megas coincidentally have Wide Guard, which is interesting. I've also got flexible speed control with Fast Tailwind from Aerodactyl and Trick Room from Farigiraf, and Farigiraf also helps block priority, which keeps my speed control intact. I think I've invested more in support pieces than I usually do, so we'll see how that plays out. That's, I think, broadly the idea.
Okay, yeah, we can take a look at the support pieces. So Mousehold, obviously, I mean, Mousehold can be a strong offensive piece, but I see it on this team, and I imagine it's probably meant to enable Chestnut to set up, or even Skeledirge Torch Song setup, or maybe a Trick Room plan with Farigiraf, redirecting threats away from that Pokemon so that it can set the Trick Room. In terms of what else jumps out at me as a support Pokemon, I mean, Chestnut could play that role if you're not relying on it as your Mega Carry. Manectric, I don't know what Manectric does exactly, but I don't think it's meant to be an offensive piece by itself. I really don't know what Fortress is here to do, so... and of course, Farigiraf itself is one of the best support Pokemon available, so feel free to maybe... I mean, you can keep your secrets if you want, but I'm really curious about the Manectric and the Fortress for sure.
Yeah, well, the Manectric is mostly here because you sniped Pikachu from me like one pick before I was going to pick it.
That's true, that did happen.
It can do a lot of the similar things with Lightning Rod being a fast electric type. Doesn't get Fake Out, which would have been nice, but I think it can still do stuff. Also has stuff like Snarl, kind of a fast support that can also be offensive. And Fortress, maybe a bit of overlap with Chestnut, but it's got good defensive typing, even better in the rain, and can be a powerful defensive wall or body presser.
Okay, yeah, that does make sense. That's true. It does complement the rain mode. You kind of threw together a rain mode in your last 4 picks. I could even see the Manectric clicking thunder or something, but overall it looks like, I mean, you have some strong synergies here for sure. Like you mentioned, very strong Fire, Water, Grass core, a few different kinds of megas that do different things. The rain mode tacked on at the end is kind of funny. I think a lot of people, I don't think that happened in this league, but a lot of people playing a draft like this would take Politoed and Mega Swampert early, and you were able to just grab them in the last few rounds. But it's interesting that all spun off of, basically you just started with 2 of the best speed control Pokemon with different speed control options. Then Ditto is a wild card, and then Mousehold is a great support for basically anything, and then you had a lot of options still on the board to build out something flexible from there. So it looks like things came together pretty nicely for you, if that was roughly what your plan looked like.
Yeah, I think that is the thing that my first Ferrigraph, Ditto, and Mousehold all do things that no other Mon on the board really can. Couple of them are supportive pieces, but yeah, I think I was able to build something good around it, especially toward the end when all the rain stuff was still available. Yeah, I will say about halfway through I was looking like, what do I want as my water type? I was interested in Primarina, that was taken. I was interested in Mega Gyarados, that was taken. It's like, you know what, maybe I can throw on Mega Swampert. And at that point I wasn't even convinced I wanted rain. But I was like, you know what? How would the budget work out if I were to pick up Politoed? And it was like, okay, I can make it work if my other 2 Mons are 1-pointers. So that's what I did.
Great. So yeah, it sounds like things came together nicely there, and this definitely is. I mean, I feel like you draft this way pretty often. This is a team that can throw a lot of different things at you, so it's going to be hard for opponents to stop everything that it can do, with just such a mix of strong Pokemon that, as you mentioned, do unique things that nothing else can, that you can mix and match in a lot of different ways. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the season plays out for you, for sure. Otherwise, if there's anything else you want to tell us about your draft, I think I can let you go there.
Nope, I think that's it. Thanks for having me.
All right, well, thanks for being here, and good luck this season.
Yep.
Next, we have the Great Barrier Garchomps. Okay, yeah, I think probably the Houndstones don't have a Garchomp because all the Garchomp were taken, because we already saw that the Raichus took Mega Garchomp in round 2, and now we see that the Great Barrier Garchomps took their mascot in round 1. They started off with a very strong duo in Garchomp and Talonflame. And actually, looking at this team right away, something that jumps out at me is that they've grouped Garchomp with a bunch of ground immunities. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ground immunities in their draft. So I think this team wants to click Earthquake. I'm almost surprised that they didn't take Mega Garchomp to hit harder, because you have Talonflame giving it speed control anyway, but then you can pair this Garchomp with Mega Electros and do a Disquake game. That's actually one of the first things I tried in standard regulation MB. Disquake with Mega Garchomp, or with regular Garchomp and Mega Electros. It was pretty fun. If they just knock out Electros, that can cause trouble, but a lot of opponents didn't. But yeah, this team looks like it wants to click Earthquake with Garchomp. The Great Barrier Garchomps want Garchomp to sweep opponents. Talonflame is a great complement to Garchomp. It covers for the grass types that resist the Earthquake. It gives it Tailwind, most importantly, and is immune to the partner's Earthquake, and it's one of the best Tailwind setters in the game because Gale Wings gives it priority while it's at full HP. Covering grass types is pretty nice as well. Garchomp can handle grass types, but they resist the Earthquake, so it's nice to have that threat into them. And then I said there are 5 ground immunities on this team. Talonflame is 1. Let's go through the others. Wash Rotom, pretty solid complement to Talonflame. Also pairs very well with Garchomp. Water and electric type. Gives you some speed control. Gives you some cover into, I don't know, some things that Garchomp has trouble with. Mega Electros, as I already said. I said that you could do Disquake. For anyone unfamiliar with the term, that's using Discharge and Earthquake. Spread electric type damage with a strong paralysis chance, and spread ground type damage on the field at the same time. Mega Electros has Elevate, so that has the combined effects of Levitate and Beast Boost. It's immune to its partner's Earthquake, and Garchomp, of course, is immune to the Discharge, being a ground type. And you can paralyze opponents, get some KOs, and most importantly, if you get KOs with Electros, you can boost its strongest stat. That kind of says it's probably special attack, but Electros also can go physical. It can set up with like Coil or something. It has a lot more options than just spamming Discharge next to Garchomp, so they're not all in on that game plan. Orthworm is a ground immunity. It's actually healed by taking a ground type attack with its Earth Eater ability. It can be a bulky setup Pokemon, so if your opponent is heavily focused on stopping like a Garchomp offense mode, then Orthworm could get some openings to set up and be hard to deal with, especially since it covers Garchomp's, as a steel type, it covers Garchomp's, all of Garchomp's weaknesses, Fairy, Dragon, and Ice. It's definitely feels like Orthworm is one of the likely Fairy type answers on this team. Talonflame is of some help into Fairies. And Orthworm can also use Shed Tail to gift a substitute to some offensive threat. In fact, you could use it to get Mega Electros in safely and start a Disquake game plan or something. Somewhat more safely, get your Electros to start snowballing, but you can also set up like any other attacker with Orthworm. And then the last ground immunity is Emolga. It's not as strong as some of these other Pokemon. It's the third electric type on this team. It gets like Motor Drive or something, right? So, wait, Emolga gets Motor Drive, I think, so you can... It's another electric immunity you can put. It's a ground immunity and an electric immunity. You can put it next to Electros, boost its speed, and then it gets speed swap. You can give it speed stat to Electros. I'm sorry, Garchomps. I might have just leaked what you're planning to do with Emolga. That actually makes a lot of sense to me. But we'll see, I guess. Chestnut is the third fighting type on this team. They have 3 electric types and 3 fighting types. I'm going to call it out here because it's another possible Earthquake immunity. It gets Wide Guard, so it can cover itself with Wide Guard. Obviously, it uses its action to do that, so it's not as good as the others at this role. It's a setup Pokemon that can benefit from Orthworm cover, although they're both weak to fire. It gives them a Grass type, which they don't have otherwise. It's a decent tanky support mon. I don't know what Mr. Rhyme does, I'm going to be honest. I'm a little lost on that one. I'm going to have to brush up on that Pokemon's kit when I take on this team. But it does give them some good cover into opposing Dragon types, which could be a little bit hard for a Garchomp and Electric type game plan to break through, so that's something. Scrafty's a strong support mon with Intimidate and Fake Out and whatnot. And then the elephant in the room that I've been ignoring up to this point, Mega Lucario. Now, notably, I said that this looks like a very Garchomp-focused draft, but since it's not Mega Garchomp, they can Mega Evolve something else. The one that jumps out at me is Electros because of the synergy with Garchomp, but Mega Lucario, what does it do? It's an offensive check to Fairy and Ice types to threaten Garchomp. Actually, Lucario also synergizes pretty well with Mega Garchomp. You can't click Earthquakes so safely next to it, but it does cover a lot of Garchomp's weaknesses, so if I think they're all in on trying to make Garchomp go crazy this season, Lucario complements it pretty well. But also, of course, Lucario just gives them another strong offensive option that they can build game plans around, and so the opponent can't just stop Garchomp and win the game. They also have to get through one of the 2 Megas, Lucario or Electros. That makes this a better rounded team, and they have some slower, grindier game plans available as well with stuff like Orthworm and Chestnut. Next we have the Louisiana Hypercutters. It is Louisiana, I asked the coach. This team looks pretty Trick Room focused, but it's got some tricks up its sleeve in that Trick Room. I will tell you, this is my first opponent this season, and at the time that I'm recording the draft recap, I've already thought some about the matchup, although I haven't built my team yet. But yeah, this team, it's not a hard Trick Room team, but it's pretty Trick Room focused. Pokemon like Mudsdale, Mega Heracross, Mega Chimecho are mainly threatening in Trick Room. Chimecho itself being a setup threat that can also set the Trick Room. They have another strong Trick Room setter in Weirdeer. And where they do have some fast Pokemon as well, those Pokemon are also largely helpful to a Trick Room mode. Infernape gives them a fast Fake Out. Staraptor, as we saw last season with Halifax Masquerainmen, I was using Final Gambit Staraptor to just knock an opponent out and create an opening to set Trick Room. Hisuian Zoroark can disguise itself as a Trick Room setter or something like that to play mind games with the opponent, maybe flush out the opponent's anti-Trick Room tech and then deal with it. Sinistcha is also a strong Trick Room setter. But his team doesn't have to be all in on Trick Room. They just have a ton of supports to that kind of plan, but they also do have some fast threats and things like Staraptor and Infernape. They can play Zoroark Mind Games. They can do a setup mode with Chimecho or Melodic. I haven't talked about Melodic yet. They could do Coil Hypnosis setup, or they can just attack stuff with it. But Coil Hypnosis Melodic looks super strong here for actually a lot of the same reasons. They have 2 Fake Out users. They have Zoroark to mess with the opponent early and throw them out of position to deal with Melodic. They have Sinistcha to heal Melodic or redirect attacks away from it. And then Melodic not being super fast, it benefits from Trick Room setup as well. So I could see a lot of Melodic-focused game plans from this team, but they also just have solid Trick Room offense if they want to go with that, with stuff like Mudsdale, Mega Heracross. And yeah, they have a ton of supports in place. Tinkaton notably gets Mold Breaker, so I've started thinking about this matchup already. I can't even stop its Fake Out with my Serena. So this is a really interesting team. I think this one looks weird to some people at first glance, but to me, it's maybe a little bit more linear than some of the other teams we've seen so far, but it looks very, very strong. And it's not super linear, because they do have some multiple clear game plans that they can run here. But mostly I'd say, having thought specifically about this exact matchup, this is a team where I can kind of tell what it wants to do, but I'm not sure how I'm going to stop it. Stay tuned to find out, I guess. Well, I hope. Now I'm here with the Irish Taco, coach of the Fluffy Friends, with a draft consisting of Incineroar, Meowscarada, Salazzle, Greninja, Raichu, Dragapult, Pangoro, Blaziken, Megascolipede, and Garbodor. This would be a crazy Pledge team if Pledge teams existed in Champions. I'm kind of sad that they don't, but why don't you walk us through what you were cooking here?
Well, I mean, I haven't played Pokemon before.
Oh, okay.
Like any of the games. I mean, I've played Pokemon Go, but that doesn't really count.
Is that it?
That is it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was just kind of going with whichever Pokemon that I've historically enjoyed the look of, and think that, I don't know, you might be able to be strong. I don't know.
Okay, that's not a bad approach.
Yeah, so it's like my all-time favorite Pokemon is Meowscarada, and so I was like, okay, I gotta draft that one. It's like a must. And then, I mean, I also really like Incineroar. Incineroar is pretty cool. And I was also planning Garbodor from the very beginning. Okay. Even though it was my last pick, I was like, you know, I really, really enjoy Trubbish. Like, Trubbish is my... I think Trubbish is actually still my, like, buddy Pokemon in Pokemon Go. So, yeah, it's... I don't know. I'm a big fan of Trubbish, so I was like, okay, Garbodor, we can make that work.
Okay, that's awesome. And you were pretty confident that nobody would take Gardevoir before that last round?
Yes, because I was like, well, they're like, well, for one, they're like a one cost kind of draft, and I was like, okay, then they're like kind of bottom of the barrel last picks kind of thing. Yeah. But, and also just Garbodor is like, I feel like not super popular, so I was like, okay, chances are pretty good I can get this one, I feel.
Yeah, makes sense. So, obviously you're new to the PDL. That's clearly come out already because you said that
yes.
You haven't played before. How did you end up here?
Honestly, that is a very good question. I am friends with Nimda, or Shadow, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So essentially he was just like, he DM'd me one day and was like, hey, we're doing like a Pokemon Draft League and we need one more person. And I was like, well, shit, sign me up. Like, I don't know. I was kind of figuring that I was kind of okay, you know? Could be fun.
Yeah, all right, that'll do it. What else did I want to ask you? So you said you never played Pokemon except Pokemon Go, is that right?
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, so how did you end up getting into that then? Was it just the 2016 Pokemon Go boom?
Yeah, I think it was mostly that. Like, it was, like, at the time, I was kind of looking to kind of get into Pokemon at some point. Like, I was wanting to get, like, one of the original games and try and start there. Because, I mean, like, one of my first, kind of, I guess, should I call it a console? Not really a console. I had, like, one of my very first things to play it on was a Game Boy Advanced.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, they made the, I think Pokemon, oh shit, what was it? Is it Red, Blue, and Yellow? Were those the first games? I can't remember.
Yeah, in this part of the world, at least, they were the first ones.
Yeah, so I remember seeing those, like, locked up in a case at a video game store, and I was like, well, shit, I need to get my hands on some of those, because those would be fun. And I mean, I've always heard good things about Pokemon, so I was like, okay, why not? And so I got into Pokemon Go because I still hadn't, like, actually, like, went out and bought a Pokemon game. So I was like, well, a Pokemon game for free? That's kind of nuts.
Yeah.
And plus, I mean, I'm big into running in general, and, like, I do a lot of shit outside anyways. So I was like, well, it's kind of perfect for me. So that's kind of how I got into that.
That's great. So, talking a little bit about your draft here. So you took Incineroar in round 1, which...
Yes, I did.
I know you said that's one of your favorite Pokemon. You wanted to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Meowscarada is your very favorite. You knew you wanted that one. So I'm not sure your knowledge level of VGC, because you tell me you never played it before. I guess, did you have some idea about what kind of reputation Incineroar has in competitive formats that motivated you to take it number 1?
No.
Okay.
No, I honestly, I still have no idea how good he is.
Okay.
But I saw that he was pretty expensive, and that's kind of why I was like, okay, I need to, like, people will be gunning for those, like, expensive picks first, so I was like, okay, I need to pick that up soon.
That makes perfect sense. Incineroar has for a long time been considered one of the greatest competitive Pokemon ever, if not the actual greatest. I'd say
Really? That's wild.
I'd say in a draft league it's a little bit weaker than it is in a standard format where the field of Pokemon is more open. You don't necessarily know what it's going to throw at you. But that said, I was kind of hoping to get Incineroar in round 2, so you kind of got me with that one.
See. Shit, I sniped you, my bad.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, that's fair, right? It's draft. I wanted it because it pairs well with Mega Gengar, but...
Oh, I see.
It's not a bad first pick, for sure. It has a lot of different tricks up its sleeve. So you can use it to support some of your other strong Pokemon, I think, extremely well. I'm also curious about the Mega Scolipede. That's what I've picked out as the one I'm interested in, because it's the only Mega you have, and I don't really know what it does.
Yes, that was more of a group decision. I was like, oh god, what was the circumstances? I mean, just in general, I really like Scolipede. They're very cool. Just in general, like, I don't know, I like the look of them. And so, like, I think, who was it? Was it Panda? I can't remember. But somebody, like, I was sitting in a VC with somebody, and they were like, oh wow, you're going for, like, the no mega, like, team or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't really know, like, I had no idea what megas did. So I didn't want to like draft any and have to like, I don't know, like learn a whole bunch of shit when I'm still just like learning the basics.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but then the person like explained that megas were like, you just press the button and they're like kind of just better Pokemon.
Pretty much.
And so then I was like, okay, then I probably want at least one of those. But yeah, so it's like I enjoy Scolipede. I kind of required a mega pretty late in the draft, so there wasn't a whole lot of options for me left. Like I only had a certain amount of points to spend, and like there's a whole bunch of factors that played into it. But yeah, I think it was between Mega Scolipede and one other. Let me take a look at the draft board.
Sure.
Let's see, who was it that I was trying to decide between? Oh, right. It was also Aggron, Mega Aggron.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, I was trying to decide between those two, and I was like, well, I just like Scolipede more, so I just picked it up.
That's fair. I think, again, I don't really know very well what Mega Scolipede does. I haven't looked into it much myself. I think it probably is a better fit for your team than Mega Aggron.
That is fair.
Because looking at your team, so just to give my thoughts quickly, I will say right away, I think the weakness of your team is that you don't really have a broken combo to fall back on. You have a lot of very strong Pokemon, but they are kind of just a mix of strong Pokemon. I'm not sure there's a specific overwhelming game plan to lean on, but on the other hand, this is the reason I say Scolipede maybe fits better than Aggron. You have a lot of Pokemon that have high speed stats and have a lot of different offensive things they can do. So Pokemon like Meowscarada, Greninja, Dragapult, those three especially, they're very fast, they're going to hit hard, and they have a lot of different moves they can run, a lot of different coverage options, different surprising sets that you can throw at people. So if you really dig into what all of these do, I could see you bringing some fast-paced offensive game plans. I'm not saying that's all you can do, but it's what stands out to me most, and really catching some opponents off guard. And you have some good supports for that as well. You have Incineroar, Salazzle, and Raichu all getting the move Fake Out, which can create some openings. They have some other support options as well. Blaziken can boost its speed with its speed boost ability. Scolipede, I think, gets speed boost before it Mega Evolves, so it can fit that kind of playstyle as well. But you have a lot of very versatile Pokemon here, so if you dig in, you'll probably find some things I haven't called out. But, I mean, also, it's generally considered strong to have a core of a Fire type, a Water type, and a Grass type, and you have Meowscarada, Greninja, and take your pick, 3 Fire types. So definitely some synergies you can work with there.
That is true. I was like, that was a factor playing into getting my team together, is that I was like, okay, I need like a decent spread of a couple different typings and stuff.
Yeah, so I think this team will be... I think it might be tricky for you to use sometimes, but I think it will also be tricky for opponents to deal with, because there's so many different things that you can throw at them. The last thing I'm wondering before I let you go here is, you said you were interested in Pokemon, you kind of wanted to try picking a game up and seeing what you thought of it, and Pokemon Go caught your interest, partly because it got you outdoors, but also partly because it was Pokemon and it was free. Are you thinking about picking up Pokemon Champions at all and dabbling in competitive play some more?
Maybe. We'll see. Like, it's I'm kind of on the fence about it. Like, it seems like fun, but also I feel like there will be a big learning curve, which honestly it like that hasn't like discouraged me in the past. Like, I mean I'm a DBD fucking player. Like, I mean, there's like a million perks, a million different killers, a million survivors, and like there's a million like little interactions to learn and shit. So like, I don't know, I'm not like opposed to big learning curves. It's it's just kind of hard to like get into.
Yeah, I understand.
But I think if everything lines up, yeah, I think I could see myself playing more, I would say.
There definitely is a big learning curve. For what it's worth, Pokemon Champions has smoothed it out more than any other game before, very much by design. I think the developers have given interviews where they talk about how they're trying to make things as simple as they can for newer players. It is still a complicated game with a lot to learn, but I mean, depending on what kind of experience you have here in the PDL, I guess we'll see if that motivates you going forward, huh?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, like, I don't expect that I'm going to... Actually, you know what? I'll say it. I don't expect to win any matches, but I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I hope it is a lot of fun. But thanks for coming to break down your draft, and I'll let you go now.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me.
Next, we have the Ryangreenblue Porygon2s. Always a fun name to say out loud. This team has Kangaskhan, Espathra, Male Basculegion, Mega Blastoise, Hisuian Arcanine, Sylveon, Weavile, Hisuian Typhlosion, and then I just noticed what I think are two Perish Song users, Absol and Altaria. I don't think this is going to be a Perish Trap team. I mean, where's the trap? Whirlpool Blastoise? Is that even a thing? Is Whirlpool in Champions? I don't know, but it is funny that their last two picks, I think, do get that move. Otherwise, I don't know exactly how to break down this team. It looks like kind of a good stuffs kind of team. Mega Blastoise is just a solid, strong Mega Pokemon that's not necessarily lending itself to any very specific game plan here, but it can give Fake Out support, it can hit hard. It can play a Trick Room. They could do Trick Room with like Espathra, Blastoise, Sylveon, but I think Espathra might be the only Trick Room setter here, so it's not a very convincing Trick Room mode. But Espathra also can set up speed boosts, it can use Lumina Crash to lower opponents' special attack, special defense stats, or set up Calm Minds and pass special and speed boosts to Sylveon, or Typhlosion. Yeah, Espathra Typhlosion could be a very strong duo here, actually. They have another strong Fake Out user in Kangaskhan, which gets Scrappy, so it can even Fake Out Ghost types. They have one of the strongest attackers in the game in Male Basculegion. They don't quite have a Fire, Water, Grass core. They have 2 Water types and 2 Fire types, but no Grass. Hisuian Arcanine gives them Intimidate, gives them Strong Priority, gives them Rock Slide. So this team overall, Weavile gives them another good Fake Out user, so they have a few of those. This team overall has a lot of strong Pokemon, but I don't necessarily see the game plans jumping out at me here. They do have 3 Fake Out users and setup options with Espathra supporting Sylveon and Hisuian Typhlosion. That's pretty interesting to me, especially because Hisuian Basculegion gives them a powerful physical attacker to complement all that. They have some anti-weather options here, in that they have Pokemon that play very well in rain and Pokemon that play very well in sun. There's no obvious weather for this team to set themselves, although Espathra probably gets like Sunny Day and Rain Dance. I don't know, I'm just assuming it probably does, and it goes very fast with Speed Boost, but Basculegion's a great rain attacker, Typhlosion's a great sun attacker, and they also have Altaria able to turn off the weather if that's what they want to do. But I do feel like I'm largely kind of describing what these Pokemon do individually, because I don't entirely see the game plans. It'll be interesting to jump into the season and see what this team actually has cooked up here, because, yeah, whatever is under the surface here is not obvious to me right now, but I'm sure there's something. The one thing that does stand out to me again is they have triple Fake Out with especially one of the best Fake Out users in Kangaskhan. They have a great setup Pokemon in Espathra that can use Baton Pass to set up partners. They have great special attackers to receive those boosts, and then they can complement all that with Basculegion, so that specifically looks very strong. Next we have the Calgary Camerupts, coached by the Raymer King. Okay, this coach declined to join me to record the breakdown, but did send me some stuff in writing, which I meant to read before recording this, and I forgot. This was the team with the last pick in Pool B, my pool, so it's a snake draft, so they had the last pick of round 1 and the first pick of round 2. That's what I mean. They were last in snake order, so they picked back-to-back, basically every round. It looks like this team also started with just one of the strongest megas available, one of the strongest total in Mega Floette. The coach says possibly the strongest Mega in the game. I will note, this is the last team in Pool B. Mega Charizard Y was not drafted in Pool B. But when you had the 10th pick and Mega Floette was available, maybe fair enough. Alchemy was meant to be a budget pick, and it can do some gimmicky shenanigans. That's true. We've seen a lot of setup Alchemy in past PDL seasons with moves like Acid Armor and Calm Mind. Alchemy is probably not your main pick with this team to do Fairy type damage because you have Mega Floette, but then hey, it also can get the boost from Fairy Aura. But I would imagine, and the coach does mention it here, probably the main thing to do with Alchemy is click Decorate, right? And Decorate into Mega Floette could be pretty strong. Of course, Mega Floette can also boost itself with Calm Mind, but it's going to hit so hard with Fairy Aura boost. If you can get Decorate from the partner, it is easier said than done because Alchemy is not the fastest or bulkiest Pokemon, but yeah, that's a ton of offensive firepower right there. And you can also click Decorate into stuff like Dragonite, Empoleon, Crocodile. Honestly, like pretty much any of these other Pokemon could benefit from just that sheer boost in power. Mega Dragonite is a Tailwind setter and a good second Mega with Floette. That makes sense to me. It can cover some matchups that Floette doesn't handle quite as well. Synergies are not necessarily as obvious as they are with some teams, but yeah, the kinds of attackers that threaten Floette could definitely, especially with Mega Dragonite's coverage. Like, obviously, Mega Dragonite isn't the first thing that comes to my mind as an answer to Steel types that would threaten Floette, but it definitely has coverage to break through these matchups. And hit very hard. Setting Tailwind for Floette makes sense. Floette is reasonably fast, but it could use the extra speed. You can also pair Dragonite with Crocodile. Crocodile can click Earthquake next to Dragonite. Crocodile can help both Dragonite and Floette deal with the Steel types. Maybe I'm getting ahead of what the coach has written for me here as I'm just spitballing, but yeah, I do see that synergy there. Let me go further into what I have from the coach here. Empoleon. They say we have Empoleon here to round out the Firewater Grass Core, but it's the first one of those that they picked. So I guess they had a Firewater Grass Core in mind already at this point in the draft. Saying that they're rounding it out is kind of funny when, from my perspective, it was the beginning part. They also note that it's a good bulky water with tech options like Icy Wind, Haze, and Roost, so it has support options. It can be a special attacker. It or Dragonite can be a physical attacker. Note that Dragonite doesn't have to Mega Evolve, so you can use that attack stat from pre-Mega Dragonite. I'll also note, where they didn't, that they have a Fairy Dragon Steel core already within the first 4 rounds. In fact, everything they've drafted so far is Fairy Dragon Steel because they took 2 Fairies in a row. So Empoleon, maybe I misread the message. No, it does say Firewater Grass Core, but maybe they meant that it rounds out the Fairy Dragon Steel core. Which it certainly does, so that's a solid synergy there, combining well with Dragon. And again, Dragonite, you don't have to Mega Evolve, right? So you can be a strong physical attacker that complements Floette and Empoleon, even if you have a Mega Floette-focused game plan. Rotom is Rotom. It certainly is. It has support options like Will-O-Wisp, Electro-Web, and Thunder Wave. They say that Mo wasn't their first choice for a Rotom form, so maybe they wanted like Heat form. I think it was the only other one that we saw drafted in this pool, but I could be misremembering because there's a lot to record right now. But hey, Mo does put them now most of the way toward a Firewater Grass Core. And sure enough, the next pick is Ceruledge, which the coach has used before and wanted to use again. It has a good signature move in Bitter Blade. True, hits things hard. It heals Ceruledge. And it does complete a Firewater Grass Core. I think it was a typo earlier when they said that Empoleon completed that. I think they meant Fairy Dragon Steel. Yeah, I'd say Ceruledge helps, certainly, like I said, helps Floette and Dragonite to deal with opposing Steel types. It's also an interesting tanky setup Pokemon. It can run Bulk Up or Swords Dance. I think Ceruledge is pretty strong in Regulation MB formats generally. It's a good answer to like Sun teams and stuff. Yeah, it's a good setup option. On the physical side, it complements Floette super well because you have Floette as a setup threat on the special side, and then Ceruledge resists steel and poison attacks and is offensively a threat into steel types, so very solid complement to Floette right there, and can benefit from some of the same supports as well. Crocodile is a personal favorite of this coach. It has good abilities in Intimidate and Moxie. Mainly it's here for Intimidate. I would say, again, Crocodile also makes sense to help Floette deal with things like poison and steel types. We know that ground is very complementary coverage with a fairy type threat, so having a strong offensive ground type that can easily run a Choice Scarf or something, I think is extremely valuable on a Mega Floette team, and also Crocodile can pair well with Dragonite. They also have 2 other ground immunities on this team in Rotom and Gyarados, so there are a lot of opportunities for Crocodile to click Earthquake. So I think Crocodile, they say that it's a personal favorite kind of pick, which makes sense, but I do also think it synergizes very well with the main threats that they've built the team around up to this point. Overquill, it gets Intimidate. It could do some other shenanigans, but I'm not sure this coach has entirely figured out during the draft exactly what Overquill is strong for. I do think that Overquill, I'm going to read the Gyarados part first. It also gets Intimidate, so they have 3 Intimidate users. I do think there could be like a sneaky manual rain mode on this team. The only problem is what sets the rain. But now that I think about it, right, like Dragonite clicking Hurricane in rain, guaranteed to hit because of the weather, is very powerful. Overquill, I think, gets Swift Swim, and it's notably not a water type, so it can cover some of the things that threaten the water types, especially grass types with its poison typing. Gyarados and Empoleon are reasonably strong water type attackers that could appreciate the power boost. I think there's the beginning of something there. The only question in my mind is what's clicking Rain Dance, but so many things can learn Rain Dance. They could probably figure that one out. Maybe Rotom gets it, I'm not sure. Rotom could even click Thunder in Rain, and then Rain also kind of complements Mega Floette because people are going to be incentivized to bring fire types to resist its Fairy Stab. This team already preys on fire types pretty effectively with Crocodile, Gyarados, Lycanroc, even Ceruledge with Flash Fire, right? Another way that it synergizes well with Floette is it can switch in on the attacks that fire types will throw back, but yeah, I'm just not sure. Apart from the question of what's clicking Rain Dance, I think there could definitely be a stealthy manual rain mode under the surface here, and that could complement Floette pretty well. Last note I have from the coach, Lycanroc Midnight form, of course, has No Guard, which is an ability this coach is fond of, but they also like it for holding a Choice Scarf and spamming Rock-type attacks, notably including Rock Slide. And hey, that Rock Slide or Stone Edge, which they also mentioned, won't miss because of the Wide Guard. So there we go. This is a Raymer King draft without Smeargle being in the game. And it's still a little unconventional in some ways. They definitely fell back on some favorite Pokemon, but there are no shenanigans to hide behind here. You can't just click Sheer Cold to Smeargle this season. Mega Floette is going to be a threat, I think. They have built out some solid synergistic offensive pieces around it. That, I believe, is the end of Pool B. That, I believe, is the end of Pool B. I don't know why it says section header. We're not going to worry about it. There is, as I said, a whole other pool. There was also a separate drafted Pool A. They're going to have their own regular season round robin. And then the 2 pools will meet in the playoffs. So we're going to take a look at Pool A as well. First we have, what is a stab move anyway? And Mega Staraptor went undrafted in my pool, but we will still get a look this season at what it can do. Probably, but it's one of 4 Megas on this team, so who knows what they Mega Evolve any given week. Again, there's, as I mentioned, no limit on how many Megas a team could draft, but drafting 4 is pretty bold. Like, how do you have game plans for all 4 of them? But I guess we're going to find out. This is another team where the synergies are not immediate. Well, there are some clear synergies. The game plans are not immediately obvious to me. Like, I see Fire, Water, Grass Core, Typhlosion, Empoleon, and then Mega Chestnut is the more convincing grass type, but Trevenant also is one. Right, that's something. They have a fair bit of speed control on this team. I was going to say, do they have Fairy Dragon Steel? They do have Fairy Dragon Steel in 2 Pokemon with Clefable and Hisuian Gudra, but they also have another Steel type in Empoleon. There's a fair bit of speed control on this team. Aerodactyl can set Tailwind, notably for Pokemon like Staraptor and Hisuian Typhlosion, which can hit very hard with that opportunity to move before the opponent. Also, Mega Meowstic, I think, hits reasonably hard. I'm not sure of its stats off the top of my head. Or, since this is, again, male Meowstic, they can run that with some support moves. Trevenant is a good Trick Room setter. There's not a lot here to take advantage of the Trick Room, but like Mega Chestnut and Hisuian Gudra are not terrible building blocks for Trick Room mode. I've been talking up Hisuian Goodra because I drafted it in the other pool. It can go bulky setup mode, and you can use supports like Clefable with Redirection, Male Meowstic, possibly without Mega Evolving, Mega Bayonet, which when you do Mega Evolve, it gets Prankster. Actually, that makes a lot of sense to me. I could definitely see this team having its own setup Hisuian Goodra game plans with those supports enabling it. That's a game plan I can see with this team. Or using Goodra as a slow, powerful attacker, reasonably powerful, in Trick Room. Okay, so I'm starting to get it a little bit more now. Meowstic also gives them Fake Out, which can enable a speed control setup or something. They also, so Clefable can enable a setup mode with something like Goodra. Clefable can enable something like Typhlosion to click buttons and blow teams up. Clefable can also enable your standard Mega Staraptor stuff, Mega Evolve, click close combat to boost your defenses. If they have any side stat drops with this team, I don't know if I found them yet. I think Meowstic gets Charm. Yeah, I think you use Male Meowstic to, without Mega Evolving it, to boost Mega Staraptor's attack. So, okay, I had to think about this one a little bit more, but there are some game plans starting to come together for me now. Turbo offense with, like, Aerodactyl and Typhlosion. Trick Room with something like Trevenant, Chestnut, Goodra. Setup with something like Chestnut or Goodra, but Goodra's nice for that because it doesn't have to Mega Evolve, and you can use a different Mega like Bayonet to support it, and maybe also be threatening with that Mega boosted power. Staraptor setup is probably the first thing that should come to mind because Staraptor was their first pick. And just a solid mix of Pokemon, where if they find the right combination in any given week, they could probably break through any kind of team. So, alright. I had to think about this a little bit, but it has come together somewhat more in my head, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mega Staraptor can do, because for me that is the road not taken. I, like I said, was really thinking about taking it in round 1, and I didn't do it, and it actually ended up not being drafted in my pool at all. But not so in the other pool, so we'll see what happens there. Next we have the Poblano-ho-ho Peppers. I hope I'm saying that right. It looks like a somewhat Santa-themed brand here. They've got Grimmsnarl, Mega Metagross, Sinistcha, Feraligatr, Armarouge, Primarina, Manectric, Mega Scrafty, Altaria, and Appleton. So we just saw the other pool's Hisuian Goodra. Now here's the other pool's Grimmsnarl. And they also have Armarouge. They have 2 Pokemon shared with me. This is another team where at first I kind of just see a strong mix of Pokemon, but maybe there's something else under the surface. Mega Metagross is just a powerful Mega. Let's see. Mega Metagross is weak to Fire, Ground, Dark, Ghost. Grimmsnarl helps you cover some of that. The Fire, Water, Grass Core helps you cover some of that. Notably, they doubled down largely on the Fire, Water, Grass Core. They have 2 Water types and 2 Grass types. They only have 1 Fire type, but doubling up on types like that can be pretty strong. We've seen it do well in the PDL before, because if there's a particular part of the core that your opponent has trouble dealing with, you can load up and overwhelm them. And yeah, I could see all that complementing Mega Metagross by helping to cover some of its weaknesses. Sinistcha is pretty interesting. So they have Trick Room options in Sinistcha and Armarouge. Those are decent Trick Room setters. I don't really know what I can't think off the top of my head of what Appleton's stats are like. So I think of it as a bulky Pokemon. I don't know if it hits hard. It is pretty slow. They have all the same Grimmsnarl support options, screens, speed control, all that, plus the complementary typing with Mega Metagross makes a lot of sense to me here. I guess they have a Fairy Dragon Steel Core with Grimmsnarl, Metagross, and Appleton. Or Altaria. They can cancel Weather with Altaria. Their water types hit reasonably hard, 1 physical, 1 special, and are protected from electric type shenanigans by Manectric Lightning Rod. But yeah, I feel like I'm listing combinations of Pokemon here, but this is another one where I don't... I do see clear synergies, but I don't completely see how it all fits together into a coherent game plan. Although something like Grimmsnarl, Metagross, Sinistcha, their first 3 picks, looks like a pretty good starting point. I have Mega Scrafty as the Pokemon that caught my eye here because I think this was the... Yeah, well, we've gone through all of Pool B. This was the only Mega Scrafty drafted. And I'm just sort of curious about how it's going to do. But I do feel like Metagross is probably the main Mega on this team, and that's okay because Scrafty can bring a lot of support without Mega Evolving. You can easily bring it to a Metagross game and intimidate and fake out things and whatnot. Actually, yeah, that's the main thing I see in terms of game plans here. Just a bunch of support enabling Mega Metagross to break through the opponent's team, making it really hard to remove. And then if Mega Metagross gets into a tough position, Pokemon like Feraligatr, Armarouge, Primarina, Sinistcha can probably pivot in and help to create some openings. I'm also really curious about how regular Feraligatr is going to do. That Pokemon, especially with Life Orb back in the game, someone else pointed this out to me. It might be in one of the other recordings, I don't remember. But especially with Life Orb back in the game, that thing can hit hard with sheer force, and it can set up with like a Dragon Dance or something. And there are tools here to enable setup with Pokemon like Grimmsnarl and Sinistcha, so we could see Feraligatr go crazy some week, and I kind of hope we do. I'm here with Ghost, coach of the East Coast Espurr, who drafted Annihilate, Whimsicott, Mega Scovillain, Tyranitar, Mamoswine, Fanform Rotom, the Water Tauros, Mega Beedrill, Barbaracle, and Sandaconda. So immediately, if I were in your pool, which I'm not, I would be terrified of this Annihilate, but like everyone else so far, how about you start off telling me what you've cooked here?
Sure. So my first thought was I wanted to start with the Pokemon that I thought would be maybe like underappreciated in draft, something that I could see not getting picked first round. Historically, I have a pretty bad luck with my number one pick getting sniped because I get a bad draft order, so I decided to find something that wasn't just one of the top threats, but something that I think could still do a lot of things in Draft League, and Annihilate is obviously that Pokemon. And I think my main goal after that was basically to make it as annoying as possible. And truthfully, I would say that I did a pretty good job at that. I found that I wanted some kind of way to make Annihilate bulkier without having to necessarily set it up myself, which obviously Scovillain is pretty good at. And I knew I wanted a way to have an offensive mode that didn't rely on my Mega. Notably, last season with Megas, I was pretty well known for not using them. And so I was pretty confident that I would be able to play the game pretty well without necessarily relying on them, which is why I did not draft. Well, on his screen is Mega Beedrill, but spoilers, it's not on my roster anymore. So I felt pretty confident in taking a core like Tyranitar and Mamoswine and Rotom Fan, just to give me a pretty good mode, especially into the Sun Pokemon that I thought could be pretty scary into this team otherwise.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I've told you before that the way I perceive your draft sometimes is you draft something very broken and then you don't actually use it and you win anyway. But the way this is structured,
Yeah.
I actually am expecting to see Annihilate pretty often. Maybe you'll surprise me, but you definitely have the pieces in place to make that Pokemon a nightmare for opponents to try to break through.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely expect myself to be bringing some of the very obvious threats this time around. I don't see Annihilate being as relegated to the bench as Colossal was.
No, probably not. And it's going to be hard to deal with, even if people know it's coming, with things like Mega Scovillain. If you weren't here, I would probably say with Whimsicott, but we both know that you don't have Whimsicott anymore. But what you do have, which I'll show later, is also going to make Annihilate harder to deal with. So it's
for sure.
Kind of a wash there. And then I was just watching, we're recording this right after Sari streamed his takes on the teams, and I had never thought about Minimize Sandaconda with some of these same support pieces around it, but it occurs to me now because he said it, that's an option as well.
Yeah, that was when I saw that at the end of the draft that it was 2 points and I already had Tyranitar. I was like, this is just the easiest pick of my life, really.
And you mentioned that you don't have Mega Beedrill anymore, so that's leaked already, but I'm curious, what was the thought behind drafting Mega Beedrill? Was it just to be funny, or was there an idea for how you could use it?
So, I mean, truthfully, some of it was intentional. in that I did genuinely want to take it, but I think I slowly realized that I kind of knew that some of my roster was looking a little shaky. Initially, I was pretty dead set on taking Prankster Tailwind, or at least really fast Tailwind, because in the past I've struggled with teams that outpace mine speed-wise, and I knew that I maybe wanted to try to get around that this season. And so I thought that basically I wanted to take a lot of more offensive Pokemon to match with that, like the Paldean Tauros and Mega Beedrill.
Okay.
But in the last few rounds, I kind of noticed that I don't think it was necessarily the best use of my points to go in on something like, well, especially Whimsicott. I did end up deciding that Prankster Tailwind was not something that I needed on my team, and I knew I still wanted a Prankster Pokemon, but I felt more comfortable relying on something more like screens oriented and taking Pokemon that might be more bulky instead of these like all-in offensive threats. And I did end up getting a pretty fast Tailwind out of it still, which I think means I made out pretty well.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me. And Annihilate behind screens, also kind of a nightmare to deal with. Or, I mean, Tyranitar could be very tanky behind screens, or, I don't know what, Sandaconda again, especially if it's dodging everything. And one thing that I am kind of noticing is that this team it's not super fairy weak, but this team is a little bit fairy weak between the Annihilate and the Tyranitar being the two main pieces. You do have the Resist and Scovillain. I guess Mega Beedrill could have been of some help with that, but I also know you've picked up other things that can be of help with that too. So you're still probably
that was like partially my concern was fairy types. I mean, one of the rosters in my pool is almost entirely dedicated to a fairy type, and so that's something you obviously have to watch out for. But I ended up taking another solution to fairy types, which I'm not going to reveal yet, but I do have a very consistent way to remove some of the fairy type Pokemon that might give my team some trouble otherwise, and I'm pretty happy with it.
So if you take on the Mega Floette in your pool, you think you're going to win?
I know I'm going to win.
All right. Good to hear. Well, unless you have anything else to add, thanks for joining me, and good luck this season. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Annihilate can do. I think it's going to be very, very strong for you.
Thank you. Hope we can do well.
I'm joined by Shaboogles, coach of the Ontario Oguris, with a draft of Mega Floette, Mousehold, Incineroar, Volcarona, Melodic, Duskform Lycanroc, Ditto, Serperior, Emolga, and Camerupt. So a lot of what this team wants to do is pretty obvious right up front. Some of the later picks I might need explained to me a little bit, but why don't you start off by telling me exactly what you've cooked here?
Okay, so it started off with just Floette, and then I was like, how do I make Floette the GOAT? That's going like a follow me, fake out, Calm Mind, Party Shot strat, and then I was like, oh wait, what if I want to go up against like something like Charizard and I can't just easily set up? And I was like, oh, Volcarona is nice. I can like Heat Wave stuff like Goldengo, King Gambit, stuff like that. And then the rest, it's like entirely matchup dependent. Like I was actually looking at Robbie's thing, and I was like, wait, even though Robbie's like in a different pool, if I ever get matched up against Robbie in like playoffs or something, I just automatically lose, and that's where Milotic comes in. But I think Milotic's good in general, but it's mainly for Robbie. Like Lycanroc is entirely for the Charizard matchup, because I think without it, I definitely lose that as well. So are the other guys. Serperior is actually for the Mega Swampert matchup, but I'd like to say something that now I can't. Someone's here in the background who may or may not have a Swampert on their draft, and can't leak what I have for them. But yeah. And because of how much points I spent at the beginning, I was on a low budget at the end of my pick, so I personally thought Ditto was like one of the best 4-point mons that there was to choose from. and then Emolga and Camerupt were just the mons that I believe were, like, I don't know, probably some of the best 1-point mon picks in there. And yeah.
Okay, is there? So I'll be honest, I got a little bit lost in there when you said that you'd have trouble with Charizard, so you have Volcarona, but we got there. You have Mega Floette set up, you have 2 different redirectors, you have Incineroar with everything that it does, and then a few strong Pokemon to cover certain matchups, makes sense, and then you're making the most of your points later on. What makes Emolga and Camerupt 2 of the best 1-point Pokemon? What do you see in them that you value there?
I think I don't think I'd ever use it, but like I think Camerupt, just base Camerupt Eruption would be doing good damage. I like Emolga for its. I thought it had Tailwind, but turns out it doesn't. But I still think it's the GOAT with Speed Swap. If that's an I can pull out, it'd be cool.
I probably would have guessed that it had Tailwind too, so fair enough.
Yeah.
Speed Swap could be fun. I'm also, now that I look over this, I mean, we talked about certain matchup pieces, but I mean, you also have support options with Melodic and Superior, at the very least, that could help Floette get going in certain matchups. I mean, I don't think I'm leaking much here. I feel like Superior...
No, Superior does have nice moves, yeah.
Mostly is used to set screens and paralyze things when it shows up in main format VGC. And we know what Melodic does, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Melodic, I was also thinking, like, could be, like, one of the mons I have, like, next to Follow Me or Fake Out, you know, it sets up Coiled and Hypnosis, and then, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, pretty clearly Mega Floette is the main game plan, but for a main game plan, you can't do much better.
Yeah.
And then you have a lot of supports for it, you have matchup pieces, and you have value picks later. Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see what game plans you come up with when people are prepared for Mega Floette, because that's the one thing, right? It does, like, 2 things that people will try to make sure they're ready for. It's not going to be easy for them to be ready for it, but it'll be interesting to see how you adjust to their adjustments, I guess.
Yeah.
I was just talking with Ghost about her Annihilate focused draft. Do you think you'll win when you two play?
I think it really comes down to Toxapex. I think the Toxapex is a really good counter to me, but like I think if it's like a 1v1, like if it's just a 1v1 against Toxapex, I think I can handle it. It's just at the start of the game, Toxapex is going to be really annoying, but besides that, I think I can handle everything else.
Okay, well, I didn't cover her trades yet, so you just leaked one of them.
Yeah.
She has Toxapex now.
Oh.
All right, well, yeah, I mean, I don't have a lot else to say. I think this is one of the more straightforward teams I've gone over so far, but it's very, very good at what it does, so good luck this season. You think you have a W draft?
I think I have a W draft. In fact, this is what I was planning on saying since the start of this interview. You know, we did a few tier lists behind the scenes. Some people like to do a tier list of the teams and what they thought of them and stuff. And like what I know is like, you know, my team got put on in like B tier and C tier pretty often. Not much above that really. I don't think anyone placed above B tier. And like what I have to say is that I genuinely believe I can take on anyone except for Ghost.
All right, well,
if you're not Ghost, you're going down.
You heard it from the man himself. The Ontario Oguris can take on anyone except the East Coast Espurr. The reigning champ, that's true. Well, good luck defending your title then. You did also tell me you were going to Aura Farm before we started. All right, thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
Good luck this season. Next, we have the Oceanic Oshawotts. Once again, a mega that stood out to me, grabbed my attention, was not drafted in my pool. Was drafted in the other pool. This is the only Mega Charizard Y team so far this PDL season. Of course, I was not very interested in Mega Charizard Y, if only because I just had it in the VGC-style League and I wanted to do something different. But what we see here is, to start with, pretty typical Mega Charizard Y stuff, right? Like, it's very common to group it with Pokemon like Raichu and Garchomp. Garchomp complements Charizard extremely well in that they have solid type synergy, and Garchomp is a physical attacker that wants to click and stab Earthquake, and Charizard being immune to the Earthquake has no problem with Garchomp doing that. But then in terms of the type synergy, Garchomp especially covers rock types that are very threatening into Charizard, so that's a duo we've seen many times in this draft league and elsewhere. And then Raichu Apart from the Fake Out support, obviously, it gives Charizard Lightning Rod cover against Electric-type damage, and it also has speed control options with things like Nuzzle and Electro Web. So Mega Charizard Y, not a slow Pokemon, but not one of the very fastest, can certainly benefit from that speed control. This coach also just likes Raichu. This is, by the way, the same coach who eliminated me last season, Season 10, with the Yosemite Jolteons. And we saw Raichu put in a ton of work throughout that season, so it makes sense that they would draft it again so soon. Do they have a Fairy Dragon Steel Core? They do. Garchomp, Sylveon, and Skarmory. Okay, Mega Skarmory is interesting because it's another... It fits that core, and it's at the same time there's a Steel type. It's another Earthquake immunity that they can put next to Garchomp. So if they want, they can leave the Charizard Y behind some week and focus a core on that basic... Focus a game plan on that core of Garchomp, Mega Skarmory, and Sylveon. Sylveon being the special attacker of the group as well as the Fairy type, able to put out a lot of damage with those two teammates. It also just nicely complements the Charizard mode because it's a strong Pokemon, and Charizard can have some issues dealing with Dragon types, but Sylveon takes care of that. There's a reason Mega Charizard Y tends to be run with powerful Fairy types in standard VGC. So Sylveon's not slot... Both Sylveon and Garchomp slot nicely onto either a Mega Charizard Y or a Mega Skarmory focused game plan. Raichu does as well, actually, because Raichu gives Skarmory cover from electric type damage with Lightning Rod. So that's the main thing I see here. They have two strong flying type Megas, and they have a few other complementary Pokemon that work well with both of them. So they can very easily pick whichever one is most advantageous in a given week. Scrafty, just a generally strong Pokemon. Intimidate, Fake Out, you know the drill. Gallade is sort of a favorite for this coach. This coach notably drafts Gallade often, to the point where people were talking about it in the draft chat when they made the pick. Like, oh, of course, it's not a draft if this guy doesn't pick Gallade. But Gallade is pretty good. It gets support options like Wide Guard, notably. Wide Guard's pretty notable when you want to like protect Charizard from Rock Slide or Skarmory from Heat Wave or something. That's pretty valuable on Gallade already. I think it also gets Quick Guard. I might be misremembering. It can set Trick Room. There's not a lot on this team that wants to take advantage of Trick Room, but Pokemon like Sylveon and Midnight Lycanroc certainly can. And then I guess it's a harder hitting fighting type than Scrafty, for whatever that's worth. Scovillain is interesting here. It gives Redirection is generally strong, but also Scovillain gets Chlorophyll, and it's a fire type with Chlorophyll, so it gets that and the boost on its stab fire type damage and Sun. So it's a Pokemon that could pair pretty well with Mega Charizard Y, but maybe it could also use Redirection to create openings for Skarmory for some kind of game plan. I think Skarmory gets like Sword Stance, right? So I can see it benefiting from Redirection and Fake Out support and all those good things. I don't know necessarily what the last two Pokemon are here to do. I mean, I guess Quillfish gives them a Firewater Grass Core of sorts with Charizard, Scovillain, and Quillfish, but as Firewater Grass Cores go, it's not an amazing one, but it does give them a second Intimidate. It gives them some options to poison things if they want to do as like a slower paced Sylveon or Skarmory game plan or something. That might be part of the idea, but I wouldn't bet on it. Maybe it was just a late round budget pick. Lycanroc, I don't know, it's a rock type. It hits reasonably hard. That's kind of nice to have. But yeah, the main thing I see here is Mega Charizard Y, Mega Skarmory, and a bunch of other Pokemon that complement both of them, which is a pretty interesting way to do this draft. The trade-off, I guess, is that Mega Charizard and Mega Skarmory have some of the same things holding them back. Notably, they're both weak to Electric. But there's a fair bit that they don't have in common as well. Like, right? Like, one's a special attacker, one's a physical attacker. Charizard doesn't have to worry about fire type damage like Skarmory does. Skarmory is not afraid of rock type damage. And then things like Garchomp and Raichu complement either one. Interesting draft. Look forward to seeing how it does. I'm joined now by Lazy, coach of the Minnesota Marshadows, also my opponent in the VG Series final, which, unless I change my mind about how I'm doing this, is probably going up tomorrow. With a draft of Mega Blastoise, Mega Frostlass, Oranguru, Hydreigon, Metagross, Florges, Houndoom, Toxicroak, Mega Sableye, and Vileplume. So a lot of interesting combinations here, and I noticed 3 Megas. I guess just to start, what have you cooked here?
Yeah, so I started with Mega Blastoise because in my head, the first pick should always be something that I can go in a lot of directions with. I like having options when I'm in the middle, because I don't really know what I'm going to end up with by the end of the draft. So I picked Mega Blastoise because it feels like it's fairly team agnostic. It does its things regardless of what I put around it, and it's pretty easy to support. So I wanted to have that, so I just have a strong center for the team. And then by pick 2, shockingly, there was still Mega Frostlass available. I was thinking that I was going to end up going with like a Pyroar direction with this team, because I thought that Blastoise Pyroar seemed really strong, but Blastoise Frostlass seemed stronger to me in the moment. Because with Frostlass, I can set up screens for my Blastoise. I have Aurora Veil access, and I don't necessarily need to Mega my Blastoise to make it strong in that case. I can run non-Mega Blastoise and still do damage with it that way. And then for my pick 3, Oranguru, the idea was that I wanted to have a strong Trick Room setter, and I felt like there are only so many really strong Trick Room setters that are not Ghost types, and it's pretty much just Farigiraf or Oranguru, and Farigiraf got picked before I got a chance to get to it. So Oranguru was my option there, and I felt like Oranguru had the support tools that I wanted out of just a general support Pokemon, and not just a Trick Room setter. Like, it has access to Encore, it has access to After You, which can be really interesting. It has also its signature move Instruct, which I think will be devastating combined with both Frostlass and Blastoise as an option. Even if the Frostlass mode is going fast, it can still Instruct and Blizzard a second time potentially, which seems really, really strong when I have it behind screens. So with that, my slow mode felt like it was already fairly fleshed out with Oranguru and Blastoise, and I wanted to have Hydreigon there because I wanted something that could be faster, and also an option that had Tailwind if I really, really wanted it. Obviously, Blastoise can Shell Smash to be a fast mode, so I don't necessarily need Tailwind, and Frostlass is naturally fast enough as is, but Hydreigon just adds that extra dimension to it. Metagross feels like it is the obvious partner for Hydreigon. Golden Go was already taken, and Aegislash was just too expensive, so I wanted to have Metagross there just to kind of get that same type synergy, but also save my budget a little bit, because I felt like it was going to get pretty tight towards the end. The second half of my draft was all much less expensive. I picked Florges to round out the Fantasy Core. Hydreigon, Metagross, and Florges together are pretty bulky, and they combine really well with screens from Frostlass, and I think they just have generally good synergy. Houndoom was there to make the rest of my point budget work, mostly, but it's also there as... It's a sneaky Heatwave spammer. It has access to Sucker Punch. It's pretty good at clicking Snarl, and it does some Destiny Bond things that can be kind of nasty. And it's also in a fairly decent speed tier. For 1 point Mons, I felt like it was the strongest one available. So I wanted to get that before anybody else did. I needed a fighting type on this draft. There were a few things that I had considered. I had considered a Crabominable. I had considered Conkeldurr, both because Oranguru is pretty strong with them, and at that point I knew I wanted a third Mega of some kind, but I wasn't entirely sure what. And it was at this point that I decided that I wanted to have Toxicroak so that I could afford a higher point value second Mega, or a third Mega rather. And my higher point value third Mega was sniped out from under me about 4 or 5 picks before me, something like that. I had wanted Mega Male Meowstic because that had access to Prankster Rain Dance and Prankster Sunny Day, as well as a bunch of other tricks that it could go for. And at this point, I had decided that I really wanted to try running a triple weather team. But since that got sniped from me, I had to think about what my other options were going to be. And initially, it was going to be like a Mega Female Meowstic, so that I could have something that's even faster than Frostlass and still threatens Sunny Day, Rain Dance when it's not Mega. But I decided in the end that Sableye was more interesting. Last season, I had Mega Sableye, and I forgot that it didn't have the options that I wanted on it. Now it has Encore, it has Disable, it has screens of both kinds, and it has access to Thunderwave, Wisp, the normal things that it would run. And it has access to both Sunny Day and Rain Dance. So I do have Snow, Sun, and Rain on this team, with Vileplume there to round it out. My thought behind picking Vileplume over any other grass type were that Metagross is already here to sit in front of Fairies, and I really wanted something else that sits in front of Fairies because the rest of my team is very Fairy weak. I don't have any Fairy resists, and Float looks really, really scary. So with Vileplume there, I can have at least one board available on my team that does not care about taking Dazzling Gleams all that much. It generally felt like it was the strongest option that was available to me in the end, and I feel very happy with it. I think with this as well, the Firewater Grass core on my team, it looks a little weird with Houndoom, Vileplume, and Blastoise, but it exists, and it's strong. And I have the Fantasy core that's pretty strong, and I also have a sneaky offensive core with Toxicroak and Hydreigon and Frostlass, where I hit that Fighting Dark and Ghost coverage, as well as the Psychic from Metagross and Oranguru. So I feel like I gave myself a lot of options. The team looks relatively unassuming, I would say, but I think we're going to do some really, really strong things with it.
Yeah, that all makes sense. You said the team looks relatively unassuming just now, and someone could say triple weather, triple mega. Seems a little out there. Seems like the team could be pulled in a lot of different directions, but as you pointed out, you have a lot of very solid fundamentals backing up everything you've done here. That is a very strong fantasy core. The Firewater Grass core definitely looks a bit weaker, but like you said, it does exist, and that counts for something already. And I'm surprised to hear that Houndoom was only 1 point. I don't think I noticed that. It feels like a Pokemon that should be worth at least 2 points. But I'm curious. You said specifically that you wanted a third Mega late in the draft. Now, I only drafted 2 Megas. I thought about a third one, and I wasn't sure how well that would work. What was it that drew you to specifically wanting 3?
I think it's just a bit of a novelty thing. There are obviously a lot more strong items in Regulation MB than there were in MA. Now that we have like Iron Ball and Wide Lens and Zoom Lens and Life Orb back. But we also had a limit of 2 Megas the last time that we played this, and generally I felt like drafting more than 2 Megas could be interesting if one of them didn't have to Mega very often at all. And I think Sableye fit that, and Meowstic would also have fit that. And it was just kind of a cool option, I think. It limits my options for items a little bit more, but it's just there for fun, I feel. Also, it's a little bit cheaper drafting Sableye Mega than it was to draft regular Sableye, so that was a bit of an attractive point for that as well.
Yeah, that all makes sense. It seems like there are probably a lot of matchups where it won't Mega Evolve, but you get most of the benefit of the other one at the cheaper price. And the novelty for sure is appealing. I was definitely weighing that quite a bit through the draft, and even now when I think about trades. Overall, yeah, I agree. It might not be the team that jumps out the most at people, but I do think it's very solidly constructed. You started off saying that you chose Mega Blastoise because, if I'm paraphrasing right, it's a good Pokemon that can go in a lot of different directions. It's not particularly tied to a specific team style. I find it kind of hard to draft that way. I've tended more recently to go for teams that are built around some specific strong combination to begin with, although that's not what I did this time because I just wanted Mega Gengar. But I think this team looks to me like a good example of how to build that way and get something very solid out of it. So I think you're going to have an interesting season for sure. I wish you luck with it. Unless you have anything else to add, I think we can wrap this up here.
Yeah, I feel like I'm happy to wrap this up here. I am very excited for the season, and I hope that we both make playoffs. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Actually, I did have one other thing, which is I've drawn attention on the image here to Oranguru because I hate facing Oranguru. That Pokemon has messed me up so many times in so many different matchups. So that's something for me to worry about if we do meet in playoffs. All right. Anyway, thanks for joining me here.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm here now with Sari, coach of Pendragon United, also the creator of the VGC-style Draft League that I've been playing recently. As we're recording this, I'm supposed to play the final for that in like 45 minutes. But anyway, For this league, you have a draft of Mega Mawile, Farigiraf, Politoed, Mega Dragonite, Pikachu, Kangaskhan, Clawitzer, Sarina, Mudsdale, and Emboar. So I definitely see some synergies here, and we have a couple of the same Pokemon because we're in different pools, but want to go ahead and explain what you were cooking here?
Yes. So I didn't come into this draft with like a huge detailed plan, but Mega Mawile was my first Mega of choice to go with. Just because it's stupid powerful, and I enjoyed Trick Room and Tail Room stuff a lot, so Mega Mawile made sense. Despite the fact that I was kind of in a bad spot in the draft, it was a kind of an odd draft where none of the like really big stuff went immediately. So when it got to me, it was like, you know, Mega Mawile was still there, and it was only like Floette and stuff had gone. So I got Mega Mawile early. And then I've gone big on Mega Mawile. I need a Trick Room setter. I may as well go big and get the best Trick Room setter in the game with Farigiraf. There's no point, you know, pissing about with lower tier Trick Room setters when you can just get the best one. And there's no replacement for Farigiraf with the stuff it does with priority blocking and so on. So I had those two. It came back around. I knew I wanted Weather. Politoed makes a lot of sense. It was on all the 2014 Mega Mawile teams back in the day. So you know that's good synergy with Trick Room as well. So I grabbed those three. Fun fact, if I didn't get Politoed, I was going to go for Torkoal and go in a completely different direction.
Oh, wow.
Go fully with the blow stuff up in Trick Room kind of team and go Sunny, but we didn't go Sunny, we went Rainy. And so I grabbed those three, and those three felt really good as a core. And it came back around. I'm like, I need something solid that goes with these three. And I knew I wanted an option for Tailwind. I kind of thought about it a lot, and in the end we settled on Mega Dragonite, which was very expensive. I spent a huge amount of points in the first 4. But the stuff that Mega Dragonite could do with being a bulky dragon type to complete the 2-mon Fantasy Core with Fairy Steel Mawile was really good. It doesn't need to Mega because it can just be a regular Dragonite and do E-Speed things, which is nice in Trick Room. Nice and bulky. It likes rain because it can Hurricane stuff and it can Thunder stuff. It's super versatile. So it made too much sense not to grab it, even with the kind of budget space that it took up. So I grabbed those 4 and then went, oh no, my budget. So I knew I needed a fake out user. I knew I needed to really cut back on my spending. And I wanted to do that early whilst all of the like nice low point mons were really good, so Pikachu was kind of stand out there. 1 point fake out. I love Nuzzle. I have not gone a PDL draft without having some kind of cute Nuzzly rodent, and we're not stopping yet. Lightning Rod's good in a pinch for like Politoed, I guess. But yeah, just cheap fake out mon. Kangaskhan, similar reasoning. Good fake out mon, nice and bulky, kind of works well in and out of Tail Room. Gets some nice coverage stuff. Gets fighting coverage for when I probably have to face down a King Gambit at some point or another. That works out. Politoed and then Clawitzer. Again, I knew I wanted a water type to kind of pair with Politoed, some kind of rain user, right? And unfortunately, by this point, Basculegion female had gone. It was my number 1 choice for this kind of position in the team, but it, whenever it went, it got sniped from me, basically. These things happen. And so Clawitzer was there. There was like a few other options for bulky water types, but none of them really fit in the team, like for the price. So Clawitzer was good value. It gets nice coverage. It's good in yeah, it's good in Tailwind and Trick Room. It can hold a Choice Scarf. And it has literally been used in PDL before, exactly with Politoed.
It sure has.
Yeah, so then we come to the last three. By this point, it was like, I've got my main core that you'd expect to see, so we're just kind of covering stuff. Grass type, was looking around to try and get some defensive coverage. I wanted Firewater Grass. I knew there were plenty of fire type users, so that could be left for last. Just stuff that can click Heat Wave when maybe Politoed isn't around. And Cyrena's a good value grass type. It gets Taunt, which is just good utility, especially in Draft League. And it means I have both of the priority blocking Mons and 2 fake out users.
I was going to point that out if you didn't, yeah.
Nothing is stopping them. It wasn't a necessity, right? But knowing you have both the priority blockers and you also really like having priority and the extreme speed from D-Knight. If you want to block my priority, you've got to work for it. You've got to spec on Quick Guard or, upper hand in the builder.
And doesn't Pikachu get Faint as well?
Oh, maybe.
It does.
This team has plenty of priority. We get Sucker Punch on Mobile as well, which is a fantastic move for it. All of which is really nice when you're relying on Trick Room and maybe your, speed control runs out a turn earlier than you'd like it to. We have fallback options, and you're not stopping them without putting the work in and taking up a couple moveset slots. Mudsdale, I wanted a ground type that will work well in Trick Room. Rhyperior could have gone, but it was a bit expensive. Mudsdale was pretty cheap. It does fun defensive stuff with Body Press. Ground Fairy is like a just really good pin to have. So similar to the Fire type, I knew I wanted it at some point, but it didn't need to go immediately. So he picked up Mudsdale. Around this point is when I realized we were drafting 10 Pokemon and not 11.
Yeah, the doc showed 11 slots, right?
The doc has 11 slots in, but for this draft, we're not using them all.
Right.
And that, I had not noticed that, so I had been accidentally planning for an extra Mon well into this draft. It was only the last few slots I noticed, and I went, oh, I'm going to have more points than I need. So we kind of get to the end. But I didn't want, more expensive Mons is the thing. So I get Mudsdale, and then we get to the end, and I go, right, I need a Fire type who can click, Heat Wave well, maybe gets nice utility options, and Chandelure was right there. And so I didn't pick Chandelure, I picked Emboar.
Right.
Because I think Emboar's cool, and I have a shiny of them. Emboar was always in the plan because it was so cheap. We got to the end, and it's like I totally could have drafted Chandelure, and it would have been an extra Trick Room user. If we get 1 or 2 weeks into the draft league, and you pop in the video and say, hey, Sirius trained at Emboar for Chandelure, you know exactly what's happened. Emboar didn't pull its way, and I needed to pull it. But Emboar was always the plan, and I think it's funny. So we're sticking with the plan for now. And hey, I have 5 spare points at the end of the draft. We have wiggle room. I have adjustment header.
There you go.
Not everyone has that.
Yeah, alright, solid reasoning all around, especially the Emboar. You were on a real budget roller coaster then, spending so much of the first 4 picks and feeling like you needed to cut back, and then figuring out toward the end that you had more points than you knew what to do with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I got so worried after Dragonite. I'm like, wow, I've really blown my budget here. We need to make sure that I cut back. Vivian was in the plan at some point, but I thought I couldn't afford Vivian. And in the end, it kind of didn't fit into my draft. I just think it's a really good draft league Mon, but it doesn't quite fit into the style of team I built.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I guess I will understand if Emboar disappears for Chandelure at some point. I mean, the end of my draft is a little bit like that too. I have a Pokemon or two where I might swap them out for something I already know about, depending on how things go early on. Otherwise, I don't know. That was a really solid explanation of your draft, and I'm not sure what I can say that you haven't already, except that Mega Mawile is just... You kind of did say this. It's just so powerful. It wasn't in Reg MA, so I was used to not thinking about it, but I do run into it on the ladder once in a while, and mostly my team just gets blown up by it. I don't think I have a good record against Mega Mawile.
Enormous. It's like, it comes in, it has a free sword stance.
Pretty much.
Every time.
Yeah, and the fact that you have Farigiraf and... I don't know, maybe 2 good fake-out users is a stretch, but like they're not bad ones.
You can say 1.5 good fake-out users, that's fine. But Pikachu, you know, it can do utility stuff and just hold the Focus Sash. This team isn't like Focus Sash reliant, which I quite like. It's a lot of bulky bombs. Yeah. None of them need it. So Pikachu can hold it if it wants, and if not, it can blow you up with Volt Tackle.
Yeah. Or you could run Thunder with your Rain Core if you really want for some reason.
Yeah, or Discharge next to the horse has also been a thought.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that one.
It all gets the light ball boost.
Yeah. You do have that strong Rain Core apart from Pikachu. You have you can get Mega Dragonite clicking Hurricane. You can just blast things with Water Pulse from Clawitzer. And then I like the Rain complementing Mega Mawile. I'm sure the Torkoal version would have been super interesting to see as well, but of course Politoed could probably make some use of Trick Room itself. It gets Mega Dragonite going, so you have that Tailwind game plan available, or just overwhelming special offense to complement your overwhelming physical offense from Mawile. And of course you also wipe out Mawile's fire weakness with the Rain, so there's a lot here that's hard to deal with for sure.
That's the plan.
Yeah, if I'm going to nitpick at all, I just don't see very many fast Pokemon here, so it's indexed a fair bit into the Trick Room stuff, I think, but I mean, just having the Tailwind Dragonite as a change of pace for opponents who aren't ready for it should do a lot.
That is a valid concern. There's not a huge amount of speed sandwiching going on here. But it's not like... I don't think there are other drafts that run, like, super fast. A lot of people are kind of on the slower end. There's a few things. Murder Metagross goes faster, but like I can Sucker Punch that dude all the way to Sunday.
That's true. You also have all the priority.
Dusk Lycanroc is another fast user, but once again, like it's got 2 hit points functionally, so I'm not too worried about that. Politoed's going to be really nice when I have to face down against the Charizard wide draft that the Oceanic Oshawotts have put together.
Yeah.
Sneasler, Goodmon, doesn't love Farigiraf, doesn't love Mortwile, so we'll see. I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, makes sense. This is going to be a tough draft for opponents to deal with. I think I'm glad that we're in different pools.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll meet anyway.
Hopefully. All right, well, thanks for coming on to go over your draft, and good luck in the season ahead.
Thank you. Good luck to you too.
All right. I'm joined by longtime PDL staff member Ninja Meerkat, this season the coach of the Dapper Digletts, with a draft of Pelipper, Mega Swampert, Aegislash, Galarian Slowbro, Hydrapple, Weavile, Kleavor, Ariados, Steelix, and Mega Gardevoir. I hope that's correct. Sometimes in the draft channel you write silly things other than the actual name of the Pokemon, and I've just assumed that I've interpreted all of them correctly here.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, well, obviously I see a very powerful Rain mode right off the bat, and I see some very powerful Trick Room options right off the bat, and I see that you got one of the strongest Megas in the game with your last pick, but just like I've been asking everyone else, why don't you start us off here by walking through exactly what you've cooked?
So, my brain is... I've done many draft leagues in the server, so I've kind of just decided... I figured that it's always best to not go in with a plan, because plans never go to plan.
Okay.
And then you always end up with some random mix of Pokemon anyway. But it kind of works out because points-based drafts, they're much more mixed compared to like a tier-based draft. Like, people have many more options to get like specific strategies, specific builds. Those teams are arguably much more varied in points teams. So I like having multiple options. So I kind of just like look at my draft. I get like 2 or 3 Pokemon at the start that just pair well together, and then I just kind of add pieces that it's missing from there. So starting off with Pelipper, Swampert, Ghosts themselves, and then kind of just went from there. Aegislash, strong, mixed attacker. Slowbro gives me a Trick Room mode, good mixed attacker. Hydrapple, strong, good in Trick Room. Draco Meteors go Burr. Weavile's fast fake out. Kleavor's a Tailwind setter. Gardevoir's a Trick Room setter. Loads and loads of options. Point is, I'm going to make it a nightmare for people to build, and I'm just going to make no one have any fun.
Well, that's definitely a strong approach. I definitely like the drafting method of starting with some powerful combination and then figuring out what fits around it. So I don't remember how many points Gardevoir cost. It must have been a lot. At what point did you figure out what you were doing in that last round?
It was when I drafted Hydrapple, I realized I only had 1 Mega. So I kind of just went from there and realized that there was only about 2 other people in my pool that still had like 1 Mega that wasn't special. So it was just like, you know what, I could go for Gardevoir. I could also, I can't remember which other one was, but it was just another strong special type Mega, or special attacking Mega. And I was kind of just like, I'm just going to leave it till last and see which one is left. So I focused on Weavile because I thought that was going to go, and Kleavor as well, and Ariados, etc. Just picked it last.
Okay, makes sense. So you had multiple options there, so you weren't too bothered about which one you got?
Pretty much.
Okay.
The one time that plan has actually worked out.
Then yeah, I see some strong offensive synergies there. I see Weavile is very interesting to me on this team because I can complement some of his teammates coverage-wise, especially threatening some of the things that threaten Mega Swampert, and then it also gives you a fast fake out if it still has that in this game, which I'm sure it does. You have the redirection from Ariados. You took 2 bug types in a row. Not a lot of people have done that probably ever, but they're strong ones.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for pointing that out for me.
I don't know how much else I have to say here. You have a strong Rain mode and a strong Trick Room mode and some good Pokemon around them. It's pretty solid stuff overall.
Yeah. The basis is it's because I just in VGC in general I like to play balance. I like to try and have as many options as possible to me, so I go into a matchup not like just immediately losing. It's the same kind of idea here. Like I've got a fighting type in Steelix. It's my body press user. I have options here. I have options.
Yeah, for sure. I guess the one other thing I look at with Mega Swampert is how well you can spam Earthquake, but I mean, you pair it with Pelipper, that's good right off the bat. You can have Telepathy on the Gardevoir if you're not Mega Evolving that. You can click Wide Guard on Aegislash if you really want to.
Spilling the secrets here, damn.
Well, I mean, I'm calling out what I could see just looking at your roster. So. What's that?
Yeah. No, you're totally right. There's random synergies here and there.
Yeah, that makes for a strong draft. All right, unless you have anything else to add, we can call it here because I think it's pretty clear what this team wants to do, and it's probably going to be good at doing it.
I think I've won this before. I've reached finals twice, I think, as well.
Yeah.
I am here to have fun. I'm here to make other people not have fun. Because that is how I have fun. Because I'm an evil person. So just be ready for that.
Well, that kind of personality does well in competitive Pokemon sometimes. All right, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Next, we have the Drampa Grampas. This is hilariously late to be mentioning that some teams have logos that I just couldn't get because the way signups are done was changed this time, and I used to pull everyone's logo from the sign-up channel for these videos, but I was not as consistently able to access them this time. I'll use logos where I can, but this team has one, but I just don't have a way to get it that I could find. Anyway, Sneasler, Kingambit, Mega Delphox, Sableye, Female Basculegion, Mega Slowbro, Espathra, Ampharos, Mega Ampharos. So that's 3 Megas. Torterra and Drampa. So mostly this looks like a Trick Room team, right? Well, I shouldn't say that because they have some serious fast threats as well. That's what this looks like. It's a Trick Room team with some serious fast threats. Mega Slowbro, one of the better Trick Room setters you could ask for here. There is a trade-off compared to regular Slowbro in that it can't hold like a mental herb to stop it from being taunted or something. But it's very bulky, hits pretty hard, extremely slow. Set up the Trick Room itself and then do a lot of damage under that Trick Room. Or you can use non-Mega Slowbro. Again, you don't get the item slot, but you can use it to set Trick Room and get Mega Ampharos going. I, of course, had Mega Ampharos last season. It exceeded my expectations. It was very much the second Mega in my draft, but I think it was the one that performed better over the course of the season. I'm definitely kind of rooting for it. I hope it's going to go crazy in that Slowbro or Espurr set Trick Room in some matchups. It is a very strong Trick Room attacker. They also have things like King Gambit and Torterra to hit hard on the physical side. Drampa feels to me like a mascot pick, but it's also a slow Pokemon that can hit reasonably hard and has a pretty broad move pool. So I could see Drampa putting in some work in a Trick Room mode as well. But, as I've already called out, this team is not limited to a Trick Room mode by any means. And what's interesting is some of the fast threats here, although they're not Trick Room dependent Pokemon, they're able to enable that mode to an extent, right? Like Espurr can be a surprise Trick Room setter. Sneasler can give cover to the Trick Room mode with Fake Out. Sableye can also do that, but it can also set screens or quash something or Encore, disable. It has a bunch of ways to help Pokemon like Slowbro get going, and also to enable things like Swords Dance King Gambit or some kind of setup Slowbro. But this team also can go turbo fast and beat you that way, so you can't focus only on stopping the Trick Room mode. Pokemon like Drampa and Torterra and Mega Ampharos are not as interesting if this team wants to go fast, but they have Sneasler, one of the strongest fast threats in the game. They have Mega Delphox, one of the strongest fast threats in the game. They can click Priority with King Gambit. They can boost Espurr's speed, maybe set up Calm Minds and stuff, maybe even Baton Pass out to Mega Delphox, or maybe Baton Pass out to Mega Ampharos and throw fast Mega Ampharos at an opponent. Now that I think about it, that could be a fun thing to see sometime. They could even... It's kind of too bad they don't have Sinistra, because they could even, like, Calm Mind, Speed Boost, Espurr, Baton Pass out to Cotton Guard Mega Ampharos. Just make that Pokemon fast and hard to remove, while it also hits very hard. I don't know that that's something they planned. It's probably a really hard thing to pull off, but it'd be kind of funny. And something like that with Mega Slowbro could work too. But they can also just straightforwardly, like, click Sunny Day with Sableye and blast through a team with Mega Delphox, relying on that Pokemon's speed stat while their opponent has loaded up something to stop Trick Room, right? They have female Basculegion, which I think was more affordable points-wise than the male because it's weaker, but it can still hit pretty hard. I think it still gets that last respects. It just has a lower attack stat. You can click Rain Dance with Sableye if that's what you're focused on, so a couple different manual weather options there. Sneasler can close combat and Dire Claw things and whatnot. Sableye could even give them... There's no Tailwind on this team unless Drampa gets Tailwind, but they have speed control with Espurr being able to boost speed and maybe Baton Pass. They could also use Sableye for speed control. They can click Quash or Thunder Wave. So the Trick Room stuff stands out to me at first, but they have ways to go turbo fast as well. That makes this team a bit more well-rounded and so very threatening and hard for opponents to deal with. Maybe I should have focused on the Sableye or the Espurr in that bottom left corner, because I feel like the varied move pools that those two can throw around are going to make a big difference in some matchups for this team. And it would be really funny to see that Baton Pass into Mega Ampharos. I don't know that that's something they were cooking, but it'd be cool if it is, and we get to see it sometime. I put Mega Slowbro in the bottom left because Mega Slowbro went crazy for the Salt Lake City Toxic last season, but the Toxic were running some specific game plans that do not match the way this draft is constructed. But I could still see setup Slowbro putting in some work. Next is the Minty Meloetta, co-coached by PDL founder Shadow and longtime player Panda. And Shadow was not sure that he would be able to join for the team breakdown. In the end he was, but he had something else to say before we even got moving on that, just to make sure his voice was heard.
Alright, so like, whoever's ranking Minty Meloettas as like a low tier draft, I'm gonna need y'all to like realize we're gonna prove all y'all wrong. And the way we're gonna do that is by how Panda's explaining this, because I don't have time to explain it myself, because I'm working right now.
I'm here now with both coaches of the Minty Meloetta, Panda and PDL founder Shadow. They have a draft of Gholdengo, Mega Meganium, Mega Excadrill, Fire Tauros, Male Meowstic, Hawlucha, Male Basculegion, which I'm amazed was available that late, Umbreon, Gliscor, and Furfrou. And before we even started recording here, these coaches had some things to say about all the doubters that their team seems to have accumulated in the time since the draft. So why don't you start right off and tell us what exactly you've cooked here and how you think it's going to work out for you?
All right.
I'll let Panda answer.
Yeah, I'll answer this. Okay. So, the main thing is that a lot of people are like, oh, hey, I don't really see the synergy with any of these mons here. You have a Gholdengo and you don't have any, like, weather, really. I guess Meowstic can do that. The entire purpose of this team is to counter every single team. So if you're a weather team, it's our weather now. You're a Trick Room team. You're no longer a Trick Room team. You have these big heavy hitters. No, we're killing them in really quickly. That's why we have. So and the other thing too is our type chart is insane. Like ice is like our only weakness, and we still have counters for that. It's pretty good.
Okay, so your basic strategy here was to try to counter everything else that everyone might be focusing their drafts on to throw at you. Feel free to leak what your plan is for my kind of draft if you want, but otherwise... So, I mean, you said that there's no weather except maybe Meowstic. Honestly, if I'm looking for sort of classic synergies here, that is probably the first thing that stands out to me, that Meowstic can set up Rain Dance for Basculegion, and then that also gives Gholdengo and Meganium some cover from their fire weakness, and Excadrill, I guess, as well, so you do have that option. Otherwise, yeah, I'm not going to say that this is a low-tier draft or anything like that, but I do understand that I do think that I look at this and it's not immediately obvious to me what some of the game plans are going to be. But it sounds like you're focused on countering your opponent's likely game plans, and you think this draft gives you the tools to do that into any matchup. Is that right?
Yeah. So let's say someone brings a sand team. Well, we have two Pokemon that, one, really like sand, which is our Gliscor and our Mega Excadrill, which, one, allows us to use theirs, and then if we want to deal with them, they have both of those mons have ways to help us deal with people that like ground types or rock types. And then we also can shut off that weather easily with Meowstic and use a different game plan with like Meganium or Basculegion, which just further allows us to control that game plan.
All right, got it. Now, Shadow, I think you were not able to stay for very long, so I'll jump straight to this question if you're still here. I feel like I've seen you draft Umbreon in just about every draft I've ever seen you do. Is it here for a competitive purpose, or a favorite Pokemon, or a Pokemon you're especially comfortable using in general, or what's the story there?
So, okay, Umbreon, I think, is one of those mons that I like. I'm pretty open about just like always wanting to draft it, and I try to use it in every VGC format that I possibly can. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I think Umbreon is a highly underrated support mon. I mean, like we talk about our team synergy and all that stuff, and Rain Dance and all. I just want to put it out there. And if you think that we're, leaking anything, try to stop us anyway. Umbreon does have Rain Dance. Let's be like, Umbreon has Rain Dance. It has Helping Hand. It has Toxic Yawn, Wish, Moonlight. It has a deep support pool. No, Thunderwave was on Meowstic. It has a deep support pool. It's not the easiest thing to get off the board. Like, yeah, it's slow, but like, unless you're doubling it, it's really hard to one-shot Umbreon.
And you
Dark
can't even
type is
flinch
really
it with
good.
it.
Yeah, like Dark type is just a really good a really good defensive type. Foul Play is just a really good move on Umbreon. It does a lot of damage. I think a lot more than a lot of people realize, especially into some of the like heavy hitters that are attacking types. Of course, it's Foul Play. I just believe in a draft setting. It's an underrated Pokemon. And you know, I call myself the Umbreon King because I've shown Panda in some of the like scrim games that we did. Umbreon is like, it will stay on the field and it'll just sit there until you actually have to focus it. And it'll toxic everything, it'll yawn everything. It can set up screens, it can set up rain, it can set up a lot of different stuff to just support the entire team. So I would say don't underestimate my little dark type, because if you do, we're gonna run through it, run through your team, and you're not gonna have a great time against Umbreon.
Yeah, I definitely understand that, and I kind of interrupted you in the middle there, but you're right that Umbreon can click Rain Dance or some other support tech and not be knocked out quickly. It also can't be flinched because it gets inner focus, so that does make it very valuable in some kinds of support roles. Now, I'm still mind blown that you got Basculegion all the way in round 7. Was that something that you were...
We were like, we need a water type, and we were originally going to go, I think, with... What was it called? Let me find it real quick, sorry.
We were looking at Gyarados early, but we kind of went away from Gyarados or a plan. Seeing that Basculegion was up, I was like, man, you know, Basculegion is probably one of the best water types. Like, well, it probably is the best water type and one of the best Pokemon you can draft in general. And so, why not pick it? There wasn't many water types at the time.
And like the other water type we were looking at was for Alligator Mega, and then we are like, wait a minute, Basculegion?
All right,
okay.
Yeah, makes sense. And I mean, this team, it can look kind of unassuming at first because, like I said, it can be hard to spot exactly what the game plans are. But I think, obviously, you're not limited to this, and you've told me that you're mostly focused on counter teaming people. But I mean, that manual rain mode, even though manual weather can be a little awkward, it does legitimately look very strong to me. Then you have your counter team options for other opponents. So I definitely understand better than I did before. You do have some strong offensive Pokemon, some good supports around them. You have 2 Megas that I think complement each other pretty well. So there is a lot to like here, even if the game plans are not all that obvious right off the bat. And I mean, if your game plans aren't obvious, then maybe some opponents won't see them coming. The last thing that I want to know, though, because I know that you drafting Furfrou has generated a lot of buzz. I think it was a 1-point Pokemon. It must have been. It does like nothing.
It is. It is a 1 point.
It was.
Now here's the thing. It maybe should be 2 points. That's me personally saying this.
Okay.
Because, all right, so yeah, it's extremely bulky. Like I think after with its ability, its base stats are, I think like 532 after its ability, which is pretty decent to be honest. But like as like a defensive mon, having like 120 base defense with its ability active and 90 special defense while still being decently fast at like 102. Yeah, its attacking stats isn't the greatest. I think it doesn't have that many moves, but like it has U-turn, it has Thunder Wave, it has Substitute, it can what else can it do? It can also use Workup and like be like this weird like pseudo like sweeper if you allow it, because it has a lot of coverage moves. Like it has U-turn, like I said before, it has Crunch, it has Thunder Fang, Ice Fang, Fire Fang, Zen Headbutt or Psychic Fangs. For some reason, no Surf. Now, if it had Body Press, it wouldn't change much since its ability wouldn't proc it. But it also still knows Snarl, Charm, and a bunch of other like support moves while being bulky. It's like a normal type version of Umbreon with slightly less options, while being a normal type. So I can just swap it into like a Ghost type move, negate it, and then just maybe one shot something with Bite or Crunch. Like, it's not bad at all.
Okay. Well, I know there's been a lot of joking around the league about what Furfrou can actually do, and people suggesting that you should have to bring it every single week. I don't think that's likely to happen, but
No.
Are you telling me you probably will be bringing it to some games this season?
Some games, if their team is absolutely weak to it. Like, if they have way too many physical attackers, I'm probably just going to bring it, because Furfrou would just block all of that. Or if they have a lot of Ghost types.
All right, got it. And then
Don't
you
give
have
away all of our plans.
Not all of our plans, but like, hey guys, beware the Furfrou. You will lose to it.
And then you have Umbreon being very bulky on the special side. All right, sounds good. Anything else you want to add before I let you go here?
Don't underestimate us, bro.
All right.
Both me and Panda are like really solid coaches in our own rights, and we have a lot of personal synergy outside of the league, and we might have drafted unconventional, but I mean, a lot of us watch Wolfie VGC. He's unconventional all the time. Unconventional can win. So I would say don't look down on the unconventional side of our team.
Yeah,
And yes, I'm comparing us to Wolfie VGC.
But the biggest thing that benefits us is because we're two coaches, we get to scrim. I come with ideas that I think their team would do, and he comes up with completely different ideas. And because of our scrims, we're 100% able to develop our team in a way that will probably get us the win.
All right, well, you make some good points there. Thanks for joining me, and good luck to you this season.
Yep, thank you.
And that's the draft. We're going to go back to my team here. I'm looking forward to using this team. I'm, again, not sure how good it's going to actually prove to be, but I do think it's going to be a pain for my opponents to deal with in the builder, at least, and hopefully also on the battlefield. And that's how it should be with Mega Gengar, right? Mega Gengar, one of the reasons Gengar is my favorite Pokemon is that it's such a versatile and tricky Pokemon with a lot of tricks up its sleeve and frustrating to deal with. And I think I've made a team that complements that aspect of the Pokemon pretty well. Hopefully I'll make good use of it. As far as the videos go, so in the last few seasons, I've done 2 PDL videos a week. One where I show my own match, and one where I watch all of the other matches and do commentary over them. The reason I started doing that was to minimize crunch on me when I was uploading pretty soon after the matches were played. But it always felt like kind of an awkward split. Like there was something kind of uneven about one video that's just one match, even though it's my own and so it matters the most. And one massively long one with so much else going on. I didn't love the split. It was basically something I did as a practical consideration. And then, of course, last season, with more teams than ever before, even more than there are this season, although this is the second biggest so far, the crunch was... And with my life becoming generally busier during the season, the crunch was still a little bit too much. It was kind of taking a toll on me, and I'm not sure I could do it again now. So... in the VG-style Draft League, I experimented with delaying the upload instead. So each VG-style video went up on the Sunday at the end of the week after the week that was being featured. So the video for week 1 went up on the Sunday at the end of week 2, and so on. And I think, subject to change if it's not working out for me, I think that's what I'm going to do for this PDL season as well. I have mostly timed this draft recap accordingly, except that this is going up on Saturday because I have the VG-style final already going up on Sunday. But I will be doing Sundays the rest of the way, I think. And I think I will be doing them on that 1 week delay. And because that hopefully will uncrunch things enough for me by itself, I think I will probably do just one video a week and combine everything back into that one video. So probably it'll be like standings, any trades that have happened, my own match, and then all the other matches. Like I did, I think, in Season 6 when I started playing, and I was doing the commentary over other matches for the very first time. But that's the plan. Weekly uploads cover not just the Halifax Masquerainmen, but also the entire league. I'll change things on the fly if it's not working for me, but I do want to keep the PDL coverage going because I have a lot of fun doing this, and I think it's one of the best things I do here. And I'm looking forward, with Mega Gengar finally in my hands, to see what I can do to the rest of the league this season. Let's find out.